What's up, man? Good to see you. Sound check okay? Awesome. Thank you. Good things going on. Waiting for both Les and Anna to come on. All right. Whew. Like, what do I put in it? I'm still, we're just not hungover.
Beyond the wall of worlds.
But I'm a little tired still. I mean, I just drank too much.
Not of our place or
I didn't drink a lot. I was just sipping a lot of different moonshines last night. But
say that there is
I'll
dark
tell the story.
And there is light.
Hey, Anna.
It is too easy to say that there are two sides to every coin. The reality is far worse. For law flirts with tyranny. Chaos invites freedom. Evil consumes
Don't see you
all
logged
it
into
knows.
Zoom yet.
Good.
There we go.
Except suffering.
I know.
And those in the middle,
Admit.
they are worse, for they know nothing but self.
Whew.
The Codex Infernum and the Codex Exaltum. 2 source books that bring in-depth knowledge about beings of all dispositions, from the farthest reaches of the heavens to the darkest depths of wretchedness. Both of these titles
Should
come
have the
with new,
updated
full
shout-out
color
for Troller
art,
Games,
new
even though I don't have
creatures,
the
new
proper
powers,
ad.
like possession,
Let me
and a
see.
multitude
There
of
you go.
information
Yep, a hermit.
providing
That's
lore,
a hermit.
backgrounds, names,
Check that out. It looks
mechanics,
pretty awesome.
stats, and much more.
Looks
These
really
incredible
awesome.
tomes are filled with demons and angels, devils and celestials, unleashing the powers of good
What's up,
and
Amy?
evil, law and chaos
See you on Wednesday.
your
Hey, Amy.
table. The
Hello.
Colossus Infernum and
Is it
Exaltum.
lag?
bringing
I
creatures
just
hallowed
got your
and
picture,
profane
so
into your adventure.
Oh, no.
Pledge and share
okay, good.
today.
Yep.
No, it should be good.
Yeah, I was worried because,
No,
because
everything
I'm
looks
logging
good.
to I looked at the stream for like 10 minutes, and after I
bizarre.
pressed, and it's no, it's okay. Now it works. But I'm just worried about lag and stuff, so that's good.
What's up, Lando? Oh, Lando, I owe you that email. You and Justinius, I promise right after the show. I got sidetracked today. It's my apologies. I will get that email to you and Greg. All right. Jeez. So much going on. We're going to try something new upcoming in a couple weeks. We'll talk about that later on in the show. I'm going to try not to do myself for, I don't know if the word would be stupidity or going overboard and burn myself out. So we'll see. Decide which one it is. It could be either. Yeah, that's always game state one that always jumps way up. The rest of these should be down. Thanks. Always jumps up there, no matter how low I set it. It's bizarre. Really bizarre. Okay, less. I didn't realize the Zoom needed to update, so he has having to update it.
Yep.
We get that all the time. Yeah, it's always. It's still booming right now? Hold on. It's down. Hold on 1 second.
Oh wow, it's 53,000.
What's 53,000? What?
The hermit. It's
Oh, up to 53,000.
53,747.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, out of 1,000. This is wow.
Yeah.
With 19 days to go, that is
Thanks,
wow.
Wayne.
That's amazing.
Here comes
Yeah.
Les. He's connected audio. What's up, Les?
Hello.
May have to do his other settings. Oh, thanks, man. Well, since we'll come live just so we can get all those showed. This is gonna be a fun discussion, I think.
Hey there, guys.
What's
Hello.
up?
Welcome.
What's going on? How are
Not
you,
a lot.
man?
Hanging in there, man. Hanging in there.
Hanging in
Okay.
there is always a good thing, you know?
Hmm.
Give me 1 second here, because you guys, I gotta put your picks up because I started before you were picked. There we go. Look at that. It fits perfectly. So, awesome. So,
Actually, I'll be right back if you don't mind.
Yeah,
I'll
please.
probably log out and come back.
take a second.
Yeah.
Take a second. Log out, log back in. So, yeah, Les is going to be our special guest tonight. And we'll see. He may have to tweak some things. So, everyone, just note, I went to that moonshine taste testing last night.
Uh-oh.
And
And
they
you're
had-
still alive today? You
Yeah,
made
they-
your con save? Yeah.
I possibly.
Oh, poison
There was like
save.
30 different flavors, and they're just
Uh-oh.
little sipping cups. So I was okay for a while until and everyone else didn't like it. All my friends, my wife didn't like it, but we had pickle flavor. I liked it.
God.
I liked the
Oh,
pickle
God.
flavor.
I had a DM who drank like half a gallon of pickle juice, and he changed colors, and we were really worried for him during one of our games. Yep.
Well, this is pickle flavored moonshine. So,
Mhm.
and someone throws 100 or another gift sub if you don't mind. Get us that hype train up, so I will up the giveaway, especially with 5, especially with a 5-bagger from Damn Weirdo Wayne. We don't want to waste that. I got so much. I mean, Patrick is crazy. I got so much stuff here, so much, and we want to be generous giving back. So, it's got to be someone besides Wayne or Coyote Sour. So, you good there, Les?
Good. I'm good to go, man.
All right.
Awesome.
So, thanks, Moose. You got it. Boom. That should be level 3 already. That's awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. So, yeah, have this moonshine taste testing. Going along okay. And then they bring over the pickle jar itself. Because they put when you do these flavored ones, you put actual. So they say someone gives me the bright idea of eating the pickle that's been in that moonshine jar for like 9 months, right? So it is. So like I ate it, and it's one of those sliced dills. And they go, yeah, that's probably about 4 or 5 shots there because it soaked all the freaking moonshine up. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And that was it. I was 15, 20 minutes after that. Oh man, last night. So I am dragging a little bit, but so Les, this came together because of my impromptu thing yesterday, right? I'm like, I don't have a topic yet. And
Yeah, I didn't know about this, so yep.
yeah,
So
we didn't have so this is what happened. So thank you, everyone. Yesterday morning, we ran adventure number 1020, the most beautiful, and it was I actually turned someone to stone in it. It was fun. What's up, John? Thank you. I turned very ill to stone, but they were able to unpetrify her and an NPC. But then after that, I had a new player coming on, Coco Bunny. Her name's Courtney. She's going to be playing with Little Bird in a new group. And we'll talk about that at the end of this. Wait till you see this announcement I got coming up. It's going to be awesome. And I'm like, man, why don't I just live stream this? Because I did it before with the group with Nerdy Guide. So I ran upstairs. I said 90 seconds. I take my laptop. I run up the freaking steps, get this all set up, and I just changed the Gabbin thing up top there. It says session 0, and it went real well. And Les was on there. We had like 60, 70 people watching.
Yeah, it was very active. It was a fun time. It was great watching them create their characters too.
Yeah, and that's what I want to talk about tonight is for Greyhawk, drawing people in, and how we all 3 of us and the audience, how you decide how to make it. How do you add someone into your campaign, and how do you take that character? Like, what's your process? Is it rolling dice actually? Because that's not my process anymore. And maybe for my own players, but not for the special people. I want to talk about all that tonight. And Les was on watching. I was like, Les, man, you want to come on tomorrow night? And then Les gives me all these references, and I got them all, man. I got them all except for the last one that you talked about, the very last.
No problem.
Yeah, okay. So I got all the dragons and everything else. So, Anna, like, what's your thoughts on our great topic here tonight? Hey, darling.
I think this is something you should. I know I don't think about it enough. At least I haven't. Now I'm starting to again, and also I need to talk about my Shield Dance campaign on and off during these 2 hours, and not as a good example, but as a terrible example or example of what not to do, and not how to do it. So I've learned a lot from my latest campaign. So now I'm starting to figure out how I want to do it, and I have some ideas that I think will make it better. But I think it's a really important bit in order to make your game function properly, so to speak, and be fun and interesting for everybody involved. At least, and especially as well, not only for the players, but for you as a DM as well, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Which I think is often overlooked aspect, that everybody around the table, whether it's real or virtual, should have fun, including the DM.
Absolutely. And this is, always trying to figure out ways. I know a lot of us are trying to figure out how we bring in, especially younger players into Greyhawk.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like when I'm bringing them in, and I wonder if Les is going to go here with his, because you play multiple editions.
Yes.
Like for bringing in Courtney and recently bringing in Christy Littlebird. I didn't even tell them I'm playing old school. I didn't. I mean, I literally did. I said, by the way, I'm an old school DM and old school Scott miniature stuff. They're like, oh, cool. So it didn't matter to them. Now, I think that's because they're coming in as not a hardcore D&D player.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
No expectations.
Right.
Yep.
And that's, I think, maybe what we should look for. For more people into the Grail community, more people, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
So,
But also, I think you are falling into the same fold as me, in the sense that rules become less center and more scaffolding. Because if rules are really important, you have to sit down and dig out all the books and do stuff. So first of all, Jay, meaning you've house ruled your game so much that you know the rules, and you can make up stuff on the fly that fits your house rules.
still
A
need
lot
to
of
get the
others
books
don't
out.
have that luxury, so to speak. They're running their campaigns using standardized rules, and that means that you have to kind of follow those rules, and you have to follow all the rules. But if you make up your own house rules, it's easier for you to follow them. And
True. Because
yeah,
I know.
and it's also and it also depends on how important rules are. Meaning you can be a rules light and hands off approach, or you can run something that is very crunchy and numbers mean everything, and every last gold piece had to be counted and calculated properly, even encumbrance and stuff. So depending on how important the rules are, that also means a very different approach, where
Sure.
the rules are what role the rules have in your game.
There's also, I would suggest, I'm going to preface this by saying something from a famous figure and then contradicting him. Alan Moore once said that Stan Lee's greatest contribution to American comics was adding a dimension of character, bringing the total dimension in American comics to 2. Now, with due respect to Alan Moore, whose work I love, that sometimes 2 dimensions work in a certain type of story. Sometimes a story doesn't require, you're not doing Henry James, you're not doing Dostoevsky. You're doing a pulp adventure, and it doesn't require that kind of depth.
Yep.
And similarly, in our games, what's required in a one-shot might be different from what a campaign is requiring.
Yep.
An ongoing campaign. And also, what's the nature of the one-shot? For example, the 2 one-shots I ran at Greyhawk Con, one of them was an AD&D adventure, and the point was, okay, you're at this point, go.
Right.
It didn't really require any kind of backstory.
You're thrown right into it.
Here's the setup. Here's how your characters got here. Tell me what happens. Tell me what you're doing. Whereas the other one was set in Spine Castle and was kind of a side story to my ongoing campaign. And of course, Spine Castle has different political factions. It's got different races. It's got different religions. And the characters, even the ones who are on the same side technically, had their own agendas that they were trying to advance.
Right.
Sometimes to the detriment of other characters.
Yeah.
It was an evil one-shot, right? So it had a totally different vibe and required a little bit of something different from the other one.
Yeah, but like you said the huge difference between one-shots and things that you do in conventions versus an elaborate long-term campaign is that in a one-shot convention game, you don't need to think about character advancement and level up and all the stuff that comes with building long-term arc, so to speak, both rules-wise and story-wise. That is
the difference there would be in one of them, there was no set agenda. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Whereas in the other one shot, you had backstory, you had tension and hatreds between certain characters, and you had rivalries. So one of them had a bit more, oh, by the way, here's some backstory on your pre-gen.
Yeah, but
and here's how you hate this guy, and that's different. But that's still different from a campaign.
Oh yeah,
where some of those things are more free flowing and can change over time. And actually, sometimes I think DMs sabotage themselves in ways that I kind of want to look at some point. But that's coming up. So
Yeah.
But I was thinking
yeah.
the dimensions you talked about. It's interesting because in a long-term campaign, you can start out with one dimension, and then you can add dimensions as the campaign progresses, so to speak.
Yeah.
Especially if you have new players, I think it's important not to. And I need to learn that more than probably others. My overthinking again, meaning I should don't plague your players and scare the hell out of them by requiring to say you play a cleric, you need to know your church back history 600 years, and there will be a heraldry test coming in next, and if you don't know this, you're dead, so to speak. And
along those lines too, something that I've seen and that I've learned to adjust for is players sometimes have an idea of what they want their character to be. And you'll be going as DM, this is cool. Mm-hmm. And then partway through, they'll change their mind. And that because they feel locked into what they created as backstory, they'll want to change characters or change class or kill the character or something dramatic like this. Where in sometimes you can, and not all the time, but sometimes you can actually talk to the player and say, all that stuff that you told me about, it hasn't been introduced into play yet.
Yep. And that's why I'm doing the house rules.
That.
Yeah, that is great points, Les, because that's I need to talk about later. My house rules are there to accommodate stuff like that. So that's big part of my house rules.
So
until it's mentioned at the table, it ain't canon in the campaign. Is my take.
Okay.
If that makes sense, it's like you can have it written in your backstory.
Yep.
But that's not necessarily if the other players don't know it, and if the other characters in the world don't know it, then we can adjust it,
Patrick.
as we go along.
Yeah, and also I think lore should be introduced by the players asking for it more than you preaching it, so to speak.
Yes, absolutely.
If you can hold your horses as a DM.
There's a difference between preaching lore and throwing little tidbits into your adventure to give it flavor, which is so. What I've learned over the last 2 to 3 years with this will be special group that's on a regular special group number 4. So I got 2 drink minimum. I got the Slav squad. I got the DFCC now, and I'm working on this new low level group. Is that a couple things? Number one, I don't want to throw them all over the Flaness like I do my guys. Because my guys are veterans and they get bored easily, and they're all over the place, and they want to do Harby one week, they want to do Narwhal the next week. Thanks, Patrick. They just want to experience a lot more things. So I tie in all my special groups here in Altamira, because it's mine, and it's I can create the lore is being created by me a lot of the time. So I tie in Hateful War stuff. I tie in Forest lore, what's going on, Celine, what's going on in the Pomarge, but I like having that control. Maybe I like having that and being able to tell the stories from my perspective a little bit. And I don't have to throw a ton of canon out to them. Like, for example. Yeah. Les, you watched most of yesterday. A lot. What did I throw out there that was canon, beyond the story that Lerge's aunt was an attractive elfin woman from Yolan's house that disappeared. That was it, right?
And you managed to, exactly. Yeah. And you managed to riff off of that and build off of that.
That's it.
And there's another thing that I like to do too, which is we kind of discussed this on Greycast the other day when we were doing the fairy episode, but have your characters, some of them have access because of their past and their backstories, and we'll come to backgrounds and stuff in a while, I guess. But where each character might have a bit of knowledge from their past that the other characters don't, and you give them something or tell them something, and they're like, guess what? You can explain this to the other characters, right? And what I mean by that is there was a incident in, I believe it was Narwhal, early on in the this would be 2 or 3 years ago, where women and children were missing, and some of the bodies were turning up. And the description of the bodies that I gave, I mentioned to one of the PCs privately. This reminds you of a story that you were told when you were a child. And it's one of those stories that they tell you little girls to make sure that you behave and do as the family says.
Yep.
And basically, then that built up where she was like, guys, this reminds me of something that used to really creep me out. And she told them the story. And that got their nerves on edge, right? Like this creature that's supposed to be like a boogeyman, a creature of childhood myth, it's walking the streets of Narwhal at night. Or like one of the other examples that we used when we were discussing the Fae on Greycast, I mentioned John the Balladeer in Manly Wed Wellman's novels is a traveling Appalachian guitarist, right? But he is completely conversant with all the myths and folk tales of the Appalachians and Scottish and Irish ballads and stuff. And he fights supernatural creatures with among other items, a guitar with silver strings. Hence his name Silver John. And the point is that he knows the secret lore behind all these ballads, right? All these Appalachian murder ballads and ballads about disappearances and secrets of the trains.
That sounds awesome.
So the idea here would be take a bard, right? Take an old lore bard, and you have a character who has access to the secret meanings of these songs. Everyone just assumes that they're songs or they're directly telling you a tale from long ago, but they have these esoteric meanings that the bard knows. And so you can feed the player that, and it allows them to shine. It allows them to feel that their character, if that makes sense, is part of this story. This character is part of the ongoing narrative. Little things like that, I think, help build interest. And also when the other players are listening to the character interact, if that makes sense, the excitement becomes a contagion. It's like they're not listening to the DM rattling on about like what happened in the year 272
right,
here.
Right.
They're hearing one of their friends tell a story at the table.
No, it's a great example of not just dictating information.
And let them embellish it and take notes on how they embellish it. And if they screw it up, take notes on how they screw it up and work that into the story.
No, it's a great point. Absolutely. Wonderful because what's the draw in? We gotta have it for Greyhawk. We gotta have a draw in. We gotta, it's Gary Gygax's setting, but man, I always tell everyone the lore and the fanon lore that's been developed over the last 20 years is unbelievable, and you don't know what you're missing.
And that's furthermore, like the player, and furthermore, I'll add, Gygax offered an invitation, right? He and Steve Marsh, to go ahead and make this your world.
Yep.
And so there's that feedback loop, that magic that happens at the table between player and DM, where just as I bring my stuff to the table, I want the players to bring their own. Some of the things that my players have done that I think are amazing, and they did this unprovoked, and I want to break. Part of me tears up, okay? Not because of me, but I'm like, you guys are amazing. They'll write their own prayers to their gods, or they'll write a long letter and give it to another player, and what the letter is if I die, take this to my family.
It's like the old character sheets that had a will section.
Yeah, exactly.
And there was one at the end where a character died, and his memory, he had traded his memory of the family that he had for some information that the party needed, right? Yeah. And so his letter to his friends, his comrades, was, I feel as if something vital has been taken from me. But I know that I will be dying among my true friends and allies. And I know that whatever it is I think I've lost, you guys will protect when I'm gone. And you could just hear everyone at the table getting choked up. It was great.
Yeah.
But time to roll up a new character. And that leads us to how all three of us, and then maybe in the audience too, answer this. What's our process? How do we get from just a piece of paper that's blank to 5-6 characters in a group with players? How do we get there? What's our process? And that could mean, like, do we roll dice? Do we, I shared mine. Hey, Josh, hopefully everything's going well. I shared mine a lot, and that's Justin Giro yesterday. I listened, and I gave both Courtney and Christy ideas. Threw out the ideas throughout. Here's a class. Here's and then I said I'm going to develop it. There are a lot of notes here. I'll share the pictures. The portrait's already done, but I gotten to the point where I haven't put these on PDF yet for them. But I got all their stats done. Got their special abilities done already. Because I'm doing this watching football today. So
yeah.
But that is, I'm not rolling stats. I let my guys roll their own stats too when we do new groups every couple of years. I trust them to the point where I'm not going to sit there and watch them roll. What about you two as far as a beginning point? How does the character process start? Who wants to go first?
Well, I can go. Nowadays, I'm going to make pre-gens. I've done
Okay.
that for like I did for my game I had last year at the fundraiser, and so that is my process going forward. And I've done it a couple of test games I've been running with friends here now with testing my house rules and stuff outside of my regular campaign. I have because my campaigns are very local, they're very contained, so I want character that will fit into the theme of the campaign. So I create things, and I usually create 2 or 3 times more. If there's 5 players, I will create 15 characters, and I will create them as NPCs of the appropriate levels. If they start at first level, then I will create 15 first level NPCs, and then let the players pick which one they want. And the other ones will simply become NPCs in the beginning, so to speak, and
cool.
Characters that are around, and they will come with a backstory. And it doesn't mean that every little part of that stat block needs to be exactly, because after the player picked and say, oh, I want to play him or her or that thing, so to speak, and then comes the tweaking of the things, meaning, oh, I want to have this type of weapon instead of that weapon, and stuff like that. So we swap out little things here and there, but keep the general theme, so the person or the character will fit its backstory, so to speak. And then comes the thing of fleshing it out, because I give them NPC stat blocks, so they're not fully complete, but they are almost complete. And then they pick the rest to fill it out as a fully fledged character, so to speak. That will be my thing going forward. So they will fit the story.
So Anna, you just described, without the extra fleshing out at the end, how to submit characters at a convention or a one shot or a fundraiser or a special event.
Yeah,
that's just pretty funny. That's your style.
That will be my style, because it helps me with the campaign, and it also I think helps the players.
Right.
You want to give the players options without saying, oh, you pick anything, because then they will of course pick the stuff that will give you the most headache to try and get into the campaign. So therefore I will try and give a few options, meaning there should be some female characters, there should be some male characters, and there should be things that are more kind of arcane focused and more fighting focused and stuff. Since I have a classless system, that means that there will be no fixed silos. That might be someone who's more of a divine, interested in that, serving some deity or something like that. That might be some skulker characters, someone's that are more weapon offensive focused, etc., and so on. So that will be my process, so to speak. And that means that we can start at what level I think is appropriate for the story.
Right.
It might be 0 level, meaning you basically you just average villagers and or teenagers, like I did in my campaign and with the Shieldlands campaign. Or I might start you at 5 or 10th level, or you might play NPCs that are already in my campaign. We've just fleshed them out with some more details. So because I always want to keep the characters and all the pre-gens will be, I will basically treat them as NPCs that are being run by players, so to speak.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yep.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
So, Les, and if you, as you're discussing this, if you want me to go to any of your dragons or your guide or whatever, let me know. I got them all prepped up.
Sure.
There you go.
Good. Excellent.
Okay.
But not yet. What I generally do is, it depends on the player.
Okay.
And it depends on the situation. Some of my players are somewhat more experienced and comfortable.
Okay.
And I'll let them go ahead and make the pitch, right? I want to play an X who is a Y. And that's cool. Now, people who are less familiar with the setting or new to the rules, they can find some of the options overwhelming. And so then I'll get into just asking them a few questions about what kind of character are you thinking about? Like, what kind of character interests you? Do you like elves? Do you like dwarves? Do you like? And once we establish that kind of idea, I'll go ahead and I'll say, okay, then we can do the dice rolls.
Okay.
And do that and again, sometimes with players, they have no idea, and so let's just do straight dice rolls, see what you come up with, and see what options might come out of the dice rolls. It depends again on the player, because I want to make sure that the player is comfortable both with the character that they create and with the process by which they've arrived at it. So I'm not going to do necessarily one set. Now, of course, it's all going to be the same. You roll the same number of dice. It's the same kind of process as far as the mechanics are concerned. But in terms of how we approach it, it's going to be slightly different. Like, do you put the I want this kind of character so I can get this kind of build?
Understood.
But first, or do you put the concept of the character and the personality first?
So that's a good point, Les, because what I found was that I was always, when we did dice roll thing setup, and then I'd always be changing those anyway, right? For the most part, because they're like, I don't want this character. This build for this character is a thief, but I really want to play mage, or I'm like, okay, what a mage thief. Or it would always turn out that way, and I always have to change the stats around. So I got away from that, especially with the special groups. But with my players, some have 70 player characters over 40 years, right? So I'm gonna be like, dude, just tell me what you want to play, and let's just develop it at this point, So.
And the other thing is, I also throw out the option of pre-gens. For example, if a player's character dies, you have the option of creating a new character, and we've had some real fun with that, and come up with some real offbeat characters. Because at that point, it's like, okay, well, this died, so I'm going to do something completely off the wall. But it still fits, right? It still fits in the setting. It's just that it's not what either I expected or the other players expected, and that's a joy. You also have the option of at times, if it's a setting like Spine Castle, where I've developed some of the NPCs, some of the hierarchy of the gangs and stuff, if your character dies, I might offer you one of the NPCs who has been a player character, a pre-gen in a one-shot, right? If they survived. So yeah, it's like, hey, this is a way that you can do this. And that way you're integrated. Particularly experienced players are integrated into this setting immediately. Their character has history in Spine Castle. They have contacts. They have enemies, and that there are benefits to that, right? But there are also drawbacks, because they have enemies, and some of the people in their organization might not want them to advance, or might want to humiliate them in front of the boss. And that's when the other player characters can be helpful. So yeah, that's another thing that I try to do, or offer as an option.
Do you do Les and Anna? Do you do it 1-on-1, or do you do it like you guys have a group setting, and like your first game, you're all going to get together? What do you like doing more on that?
I'd like to have a 1-on-1 with each player first, because that way you can discuss secret things and stuff, and you can kind of you can kind of give, because there might be hidden things that player can decide. If the player, it's up to the player to decide what to tell other players and stuff, so to speak. So that way I can do that first. And then I like to have a session 0 with all the players at once, so to speak, so we can kind of work out more of the other stuff. But first we kind of talk about and pick the and kind of delve into the backstory and get a chance for the player to, and first I give the player a bunch of, and I usually sneaky, so I kind of say, okay, the first player that is in line to be part of the campaign or the adventure, I will send the pre-gens to that first, and let them, and have a 1-on-1 and let them pick, and so on. And sometimes I can, if I really want to be, I can let them roll dice, and then who gets to pick characters first. And if the last one only have like 2 maybe or 3 to choose from, I will make new ones, so to speak. So if they don't like any of those, then I'll definitely make new ones, but they need to fit the story in general terms. Like in the Shieldlands, for instance, I required that all the play characters were humans, for instance, and they were villagers, meaning they had a backstory that would fit the village somehow. So you can't say that I'm an elven orphan coming from blah blah somewhere, because that wouldn't fit in the story. So it needed to be someone who lived in that village.
You're talking about
Shieldlands
Shieldlands now specific.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Shieldlands campaign. So it will be my next campaign. I think will be an Elven campaign. So then there might be opposite. Elven is the obvious choice. Half Elven, maybe human or something might be options too. But so I'm usually very constrained in those depending on what campaign I'm running, so to speak. I might run a Drow campaign in the future where it might be difficult. Yeah, I'm toying with it. Because right now I'm making up the rules for different races and stuff, or like I call them ancestries and lineages. So I want to know how they function, so to speak. And also when it comes to the base stats, if I have rules for creating them, and then you have an XP budget. So if you play 0 level, you might have an XP budget of 500 or something like that. So and then you have, so each lineage or ancestry, like humans, you have a base of 8 on each of the stats, and then you can just purchase more points. But that means that you might learn a little bit other stuff, like a language less maybe, or stuff like that. So if you boost your ability scores to begin with, but you have that, and you have a base hit points of 8, I think, no 6 for human. To begin with, and then you can also say, well, I want to have a better hit dice, so I spend money, spend XP and get a D8 as a hit die instead, or boost it to a D10 or even a D12. But that means that you learn less other stuff to begin with, so you can upgrade your stuff as you play along, so to speak. So that will be my way of dealing with. But and then other ends, like elves might have. They have different things. They might have more base languages, and their stats might be higher or lower as a base, and they might get an extra of a 10 on Dex, for instance, and or something as a base, and then start purchasing from there. So not all of them are created equal, and that would have been a problem if you could always pick whatever ancestry you wanted in all the games. But since it's going to work in my campaign, that means that they don't have to be created absolutely equal, so to speak. Elves might be better from a mechanical standpoint than humans, because in my campaign, it will be more like, I can simply say in that campaign, if you have a human, I might say that, well, you have 500 extra XP, so you can pick some extra stuff to compensate for it or something. So I can simply adjust it that way. Or the elves might be hated by more critters around, so it's more difficult to play an elf, or something.
I think.
Good. Let's.
Oh no! Go on, Anna. Sorry.
I just want to say, Anna, you've created not only a sandbox game setting, but a sandbox character creation.
Exactly. I want to, and that is something I urge everybody. You should tweak the house rules so they suit your play style.
Yes,
just like you have, Jay. So so they should fulfill the requirements you and your players have, so to speak. And that's important. Just like if you want to organize play, then you have to go with vanilla, because everybody should know the rules and they should be the same at every table. If you want to run long-term campaigns in your own manner, so to speak, then you should house rule heavily so it suits you and your players.
I think going back to what Anna was saying, there are 3 things that I would do. I generally avoid point buy of any variety, because I like randomness. I like, and my players are not adverse to. Now, again, this varies from player to player. If a player makes a case that they want to point buy, I'll let them do a point buy. But on the whole, I like the randomness, and most of my players are not averse to the idea of suboptimal characters, shall we say.
Sure.
Because if you think about it, depending on the setting, if you're in a combat situation, there's something fundamentally cool about a character who has a specific skill set, and you need that specific skill set. But that character is squishy.
Yeah.
So the rest of the party is trying to make sure that this person who has the skills that we need.
So true.
It could be a lot of fun to do it. So that's something, yeah, you should definitely play. And that could be fun if you set down all the players and you roll your stats, so to speak. That could be a lot of fun. But then you have to
I do a combination of the two things. I do an open meeting and a session 0, if you will, and then I also do one-on-one. Either through DM or through an individual meeting.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that I try to do is if the player is coming in late, for example, when I finally convinced my girlfriend to take the plunge and play D&D, the rest of the party was being held captive. And she and her trusty goblin sidekicks turned up and basically sprang them from their captivity. And there have been other incidents where player characters are being held captive, they're being ransomed, they're under attack, and suddenly another character turns up and is introduced to the party that way.
Yeah.
And it's a great way because it's like, basically at the end, everyone's standing over the bodies and going, "Hey, nice to meet you, I guess." So that's kind of an interesting thing. And the other thing that I would recommend as far as a little hook, we were talking about ways of getting people to buy into the setting, right?
Yeah.
And buy into the thing. I am going to use an example from a Western of something that I tend to do with some of my player characters.
Okay.
But what it is, to begin with, is the idea that the character, not only a magic item, right? Not only does if they get a cool magic item, or if they start out with some kind of magic item, not only does that have a history, I want that to have a history and connect them somehow to the world, but a mundane item that connects them to their personal history and to the world. The example I want to give is many of you probably know the great Sergio Leone Western, Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah. Henry Fonda is the bad guy.
What I'm thinking of then.
Yeah.
Harmonica.
Yes.
Where you go through the entire movie and Charles Bronson's character is playing a harmonica, and you don't find out until the very end that the reason he has the harmonica, when he shoots, basically it's in the lead up and the shoot. Spoilers for a very old movie. Basically Henry Fonda's character had made him squat on all fours with his brother on his back, with a noose around the brother's neck, and then put a harmonica in the boy's mouth and said, "Play it for your loving brother."
Yeah, well, he's standing on top, and once he falls
down,
and
then he collapses, the brother dies, and the bandits just left him as a child. And so all this time he's kept the harmonica, and when he goes up after he shot Fonda's like, "Who are you?" And he just pulls the harmonica out from around his neck and puts it in Fonda's mouth.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So the idea is this seemingly mundane item, right, that you don't expect an explanation for, really, in the movie, is the crux of that character's entire existence. In many ways, it's the reason why that character is there.
Unless it's way better than the Quick and the Dead revenge one.
yeah, definitely. But the other thing is, so the idea is you have something like to give you an example, one of my PCs was a dwarf who had grown up as a gladiator type, right?
Mm-hmm.
He'd been captive in the Pomage and all this stuff. But the thing is that he acquired this habit while he was there of collecting teeth and paying to have the teeth made into these little sculptures. So every time the dwarf killed somebody, he would take a tooth from the person or the orc or whatever it was, and go out of his way to this private little gnomish artisan he knew, and pay the gnome to sculpt it into some sort of animal or totem. And he had a collection of these teeth that he kept with him at all times. And basically each one of them signified one of his kills.
I love it.
And I think that it ties into his past in the Pomage. It ties into how he feels in many ways distant from he's different from other dwarves, right? He's an outcast and he's an outsider in many ways because of what he went through. And it gives him a visual signifier. It gives the character something to relate to and an activity outside of normal encounters. It gives him a downtime kind of activity where he goes to see this gnome, and this old gnome is like, got another one, did you? Come back in a week. And so yeah, it's kind of fun that way.
And Les, with
Tie those things in.
that effect doesn't affect canon at all.
No,
It throws a little bit of a flavor in there, and it's not stripping it off and stripping out anything but it enhances the background storyline on the character. It's pretty cool. Yeah, absolutely. So we all have our different styles. And like I said, mine depends a lot on whether it's my base players or my special players.
Mhm.
And then from there, characters get developed and characters get some background and characters. And I discussed a lot of that yesterday on this.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. One thing I want to say is I love the area of this area of Greyhawk. Why do I love this area of Greyhawk so much of Altamira? Not just because that I have my own city there, but my gosh, and I don't want to stereotype negatively. This is a positive. The ladies love playing elves and half elves, right? So I got the area.
Absolutely.
Celine is perfect. Perfect. And then I can even throw a little bit more of a carrot in there that you come from a noble house or a lesser house.
I love that too, and I worked hard to get away from elves and stuff, and now I feel like I want to go back and do them much more elaborate and with more deep stories and stuff, because I was towing around there for a lot of the times. The first 20 years it was always around Celine, but now I realized I didn't know much about Celine. I didn't have an idea of develop things deep or anything like that. So now I know the setting way more. So now I feel I can start making justice to an area, so to speak. So I fall in love with an area per decade. This decade, it's been for 3-4 years. Shieldlands, and we probably for another 2-3 years. Exactly, we're Devon and that part of United Kingdom will list and stuff for almost 10 years, and it will probably be Shieldlands for another 2 or 3 years, and then I will hopefully then I can shift back to the old classics and do them again, so to speak. Not them, but do those areas again and do them really deep this time, as deep as I've done Shieldlands. Yeah.
So I'm not, trust me, Kirko, who's Courtney. I'm not besmirching the ladies here. What I'm saying is it's great because now I have an area, and you've seen it in shows where Viriel, who's Heather Hex plays the Grey Elf, she's a full-blooded Grey Elf out from a noble house, and she always says, "I'm better than all of you." She really does not like to have, and that creates the interactivity. Instead of having a character from Celine, a character from a character from the Nomad. I mean, they can have that here and there, but I love the interactivity that I can have that goes on. And Tony Winslow Brill has one, and keep on going, keep on going. Bones has one, Darling has one. So go ahead.
I was going to say this ties into something else. Man, this is possibly purely idiosyncratic on my part. But of course, over the editions, there's been a drift away from a human-centric world to a, how can I put this?
Multicentric or
decentered. Let's say decentered.
Yeah.
Where there are multitudes, right? This world contains multitudes of different. The D&D multiverse contains multitudes of options, shall we say? I kind of play it a little bit close to the chest. I play it a lot like the old school game, but what I do is, I love the old monster manual, right?
Sure.
And one of the things that always has fascinated me would be the frequency listing. So what I do in that is I'll look and I'll see that, for example, in their environment, in the environment in which they would be expected to be found, like halflings and gnomes will be encountered, it's rare. Elves uncommon, and dwarves common, which I find interesting. So what I tend to do there is there's an assumption that the halflings, gnomes, and elves can take or leave being around humans, right? You'll wind up with enclaves in some cities. And again, another useful thing is to look at the Gazetteer or look at some of the source material and see what the populations of various countries and cities consists of. Like, how many elves live in this area? How many elves live in this city? What are and then think about what the terms of trade or diplomacy would be in that area. And then figure in how the relationship between the populations works. Because that's another thing that I think is kind of cool that one can play with, would be, how condescending are the elves towards humans?
Right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
How obviously the dwarves, if they're as in terms of common, they're I can always assume that the elves know that you're there. They just don't necessarily want to interact with you. Right.
Yep.
And then you look at population numbers as well, and like I said, it's a way to get an in there into the psychology of some of the characters. And it's one of the things that I find lacking, by the way, in 5th edition. One of the reasons I go back and I tend to pick and consult material from older editions. I mean, I use a heavily modified 5e anyway, but in terms of thinking about things like that, Greyhawk has its own flavor, right, for me. And I'm not going to outright claim that I'm going to deny any option, but I kind of like the idea that here are some of the things, and actually that ties directly into what Kai Brightwing just mentioned.
Yeah, I'm typing that in too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because we'll definitely have to deal with that, because that was one of the things on my list where and Kai Brightwing, just a related question. Can they read and write?
Yep.
So yeah, but the thing is with that, it's interesting to me to take some of that older material and mine it for how applicable it can be to my 5th edition game, because after all, this is the same world, right? It's just that when I'm playing in the 600s, I use 5th edition.
Right.
When I'm playing 570s, I'm using 1st edition, so on and so forth. So, but it's like I want some sort of form of consistency across the board there. With the understanding, of course, that wars have taken place, populations have been displaced, things change over time. But yeah, that's something that I do. I've always found it and it leads to all kinds of other interesting things. For example, how familiar are your characters with lycanthropes? Since frequency in the environment that they're likely to be encountered is common.
Oh my gosh.
So they're up there with orcs in terms of running across.
That's a lot of werewolves and were-rats running around.
Yeah, so the thing is that thankfully they don't roam in the same numbers that orcs do. But when they are roaming, you're likely to run into them. But it's just something to consider, if you see what I mean. And that also feeds into the lore. Like, what if your players know they've heard stories in a tavern about the setting? And again, that's tying them in, right? You've heard these stories about this particular forest or this particular, stretch of the wild coast where werewolves are known to, the hairy ones shall dance, to use a Manly Wade Wellman title.
There's so much that Greyhawk gives you, so many options and so many things that you can macro or micro your setup, right? And like it sounds like Anna's your first is microed around a town. Right, around the town with the Iusian priest and all the and then it spreads out.
Yeah,
right?
I'm hyper local usually in my games, but that's part of my since I develop things to be around. So I normally don't go around. They now traveled about 15, 20 miles in 50 sessions. They traveled.
That's not far.
Exactly 20 miles. So the first 25 sessions, we didn't go more than, we were in the same town. We didn't go more than a couple of 100 yards. 500 yards in 25 sessions. Yeah. So we were in the same town, using the same maps on the same spot, same buildings, the same little dungeon, and they the first 10 sessions they didn't go outside the walls of the town. And the town is not big. It's like a tiny little thing that is 300 yards across. Or less. Somewhere it's like 25, 30 houses in there. So that's half. There was probably about 30 or so. Half of them are ruined, and they burned down 2 of them extra, so to speak, in during those 20 sessions. Yep, they burned it. So it was
That's the other cool thing, though, is like I do a similar thing with Divers and Safeton. Where a lot of the some early stuff was taking place. It was very neighborhood specific.
Yeah.
like that for the characters.
Hey,
For me, it was also. Oh, sorry.
go for it.
No,
please.
I was going to say, for me, it was simply to catch up with map making and stuff. I knew I wanted to get to Crit Wall by Need Fest, and so I didn't know how many sessions I would have, so I started mapping, and then I could keep them contained and long enough. So now I actually have a map of Crit Wall and stuff, and then we go there. So that was a little bit part of it. I want to be much more prepared. So my goal is for the next campaign to have all the settlements generally mapped out. So that's why I want to have a prep time of 2 or 3 years before I start running.
Wow.
Yeah.
For me, it was I wanted to create, how can I put this? We were speaking of ties to the setting. The PCs had wound up developing a relationship, a fairly close relationships with, for example, the leather worker who made some of their armor, and the leather worker's family, who also did civilian clothes for them, because she was a tailor. And also, one of them wanted them to acquire both medical skills and poisoning skills, right? So he apprenticed himself to the local apothecary. Who was very understanding, because the apothecary had, how can I put it, had his misbegotten youth as an assassin in the service of a deity. So it was like, yeah, well, I understand. And then that you occasionally will need to go off, but also understand that there's work that needs to be done, boy. And so that dragged. I mean, that took quite a while, right? Because he's not gonna get the skill overnight, and periodically, duty will call elsewhere. And this whole series of relationships, the local bartender, where there was literally a 3-legged dog in the bar named Lucky, who had imbibed a potion of longevity that he had stolen from a captain in Safeton. So this dog, who had been rescued by someone who was a refugee from Safeton, is the bar mascot, if you will, and very sensitive to evil, and so on, and also long-lived. The dog is just not going to die anytime soon. By dog years. It drank a lot of potions of longevity. It stole this captain's stash. But I did that deliberately in honor of there was a bar down here in New Orleans called the 3-Legged Dog. So it was kind of my little tribute to that dog. But yeah, it tied them into the setting, if that makes sense, and they wound up caring about these characters. And at times these characters could help them, and at times the characters were in trouble and needed their help. And yeah, it was a fun thing to develop over time, and it was fun to see them react when one of those NPCs was threatened. Like, it would basically be hands on hilts of swords. Excuse me, you're not messing with our friends, are you? So yeah, that's definitely a way to think about that, without them having to go to the detail of belonging to this faction or that faction. They were just people who hung out in the neighborhood, right? And it was their home, damn it.
Gary?
Yeah, I think it's important for the players to be able to, they should get the chance to pick the faction they want, and therefore guide where they want the campaign, or simply say abandon one faction and take the consequences of it and say, oh, we're going to join there instead, so to speak.
Or say we don't want to be a part of any faction.
Exactly.
and
Build
that
our
was the
own
point of this
faction,
neighborhood.
whatever.
This neighborhood's kind of like an island, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Where you have neighborhoods like that in any city, where basically, what's our faction? Minding our own business and doing trade, man.
To a point, because I'm going to tell you the number one. I'm not bad mouthing other live streams. The number one issue I see with a lot of live stream events, they sandbox it, and then 5 characters do 5 different things, and they never even left the inn that night. You know what I mean?
There you have the problem with when you put on a live stream, and to some degree a convention game, but even more so with the live stream, because then you're doing it not only for the players and for yourself, you're doing it for an audience.
Right.
And that puts another requirement.
Yeah,
it needs to be fun. Meaning a home game, or gameplay at the convention only needs to be fun for the people at the table.
True.
But if you stream the game, then you then you have an audience, and the game needs to be fun for them too. And that means that you widen the people affected, so to speak.
Yep.
I think to Jay's point too, though, that when things go off the rails that way, and you got 5 different people doing stuff that's unconnected, that can be boring for each of the players at the table too, because it's like each of them is waiting to do their thing, right? So I'm off doing this. What's happening to me? Wait, I'm off doing this. What's happening to me?
Yep.
And that's when you pull like what Raymond Chandler said was the solution to any like time that you came up against writer's block or a plot problem, which is you have someone walk into the room with a gun and open fire.
That's a good idea.
Basically just throw something in there that upsets the balance, so that the players have to react to it.
Someone walks in and just fireballs everyone and walks
out.
Yeah,
or not at that extreme, but yeah, basically.
But it's cool because as a DM you can take the two extremes. You can either toss it up completely and cause mayhem by disrupting things, and you can also just wait it out, make it so damn boring that the players will be the one start killing things just to get something done.
Yeah, but see, the catch is when my players get bored, I know I'll get bored too.
Yeah, well, I have patience in that sense. So yeah,
I do too, but only to a point, because it's like, you know, there's a certain point at which, you know, you're like, okay, and it's cool. And by the way, I do things where characters go and have conversations in other rooms where I'll like either pass a note or we'll go into a separate channel.
Yeah, I try to skip those bits, but sometimes what I've done
they're
is
essential.
Exactly.
In the same way that you convey secrets during a one-on-one session before the game, there are times when you just make sure you time it though, and you pace it so that it's not like you spending 30 minutes in the other room. Just basically tell the other players, hey, if you need to grab a snack or a bio break, go ahead. I'm going to talk to you in this other chat right quick.
It's tough. It's a tough situation.
Yeah. And also in a streaming game, you can't really hide, and you can, but then you cut out the audience. But in an online game, you can send direct messages on Discord or something to that player, and as long as they're quick, you can kind of hide it, especially if you're a DM, because you're already fiddling around with things behind the virtual DM screen, so to speak. So
also, it depends on how you're streaming too, because if you're all in the same room, you can have the other players, and I've seen this done, leave the room with just you for like 5 minutes or something.
Oh yeah.
So it just depends on how it's done. There are logistics. It's just a matter of the logistics and handling them.
Yep. So you can do it, and worst case scenario, if you have a long split, you can actually start running in 2 different sessions. The only thing is then, depending on your play style, how time sensitive you are, so to speak, you have to make sure, and then you can end up with, I've done that a couple of times, and it's both fun and tricky, because all of a sudden you have one, if there's a lot of combat, they might do 5 minutes in campaign time, the other ones are just going around looking for clues and talking to people, and they could play a week in a session, and the other ones play 5 minutes of combat, so that becomes a bit of a problem. So that way, I only, if you have different people doing non-combat stuff like downtime in different spots and stuff like that, then I would sometimes suggest splitting it up, taking short sessions with the various groups doing various things at various bits, if it's not too combat heavy.
To Scottish Jeff's point in chat, having players leave the room lets them know there's some private conversations going on. Sometimes the players will know that there's a private conversation going on.
Yeah.
In that, for example, in my ongoing campaign, a spy master summoned 2 PCs to his place and to his offices, and the players knew that he had been summoned. They just didn't know what was talked about, and that was deliberate. They don't, and they still don't know entirely what was being discussed. And it was the terms for, by the way, some of the characters were being retired into story. It was the conditions for allowing those characters to be protected and leave safely. So basically, this one PC was negotiating for the other party's lives, if you will. They didn't find out about this until later, and it was out of character, if that makes sense. And they were like, "Oh my God, you mean?" Yeah, and it was like, "Yep."
So, yeah,
But that's the kind of thing where, and then sometimes he's right. Scottish Jeff is right. There's things that you need to leave and do privately, but it just depends on how you're doing it and what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, by the way, Scottish Jeff. I like sometimes creating, particularly in paranoid settings, or settings where the characters might experience a sense of paranoia and distrust, situations where I do the equivalent of passing a blank note.
Yeah, it's always
like
fun.
like they're like, wait, what just happened? What did that significant glance that a character shot the PC mean?
Yeah.
So here's my problem. Hey, Bill, I need this final creature monster a month ahead. Can you pay? What am I going to do? I mean, he's playing the game. Just that happened with the Death Knight on Thursday night.
That's the thing. You need, as a player, you need to be professional enough that you can take. Yeah, you have to think what your character knows and what you know.
Yeah.
And especially that, but that becomes obvious when you played for decades, or way too long, like we have. Then
Big Mac,
there are a lot of secrets we already know, so to speak. We've been around the bend a few times, and so therefore it's. Therefore, I more and more have to think like the character and play the character rather than simply enjoying the game. And in the beginning, it was all about trying to outsmart the DM. And the longer I played, the less interesting that really old school game style had become, so to speak. Less and less interesting. Now my games are not about that part at all, so to speak. It's not about me outsmarting the players, not one bit. That is something I've completely taken away. But there's nothing wrong with playing it that way, especially with new players. It might be a lot of fun to challenge them
I think it's a balancing act. You want, because I think that there's value not only from the perspective of old school gaming. I think my players will vouch that as many deaths as some of the characters have had, as many characters as have died, I'm not antagonistic. They usually have a way out. Not always, but there's usually a way out, or a weakness to exploit, or something.
Yeah.
It's a matter of thinking it through, or just strategically withdrawing if you know you're outgunned.
Yeah. For me, I say a bit like Jim Ward, is that it's not me killing the characters.
Yeah, it's them killing
the players. They end up in wrong spots, so to speak. So to some degree, that's the case. But I try to warn and inform and have bad omens, and also there are plenty, usually on the way there are plenty of ways out. But sometimes the players are just hell-bent. They want to take the plunge. Because they really
you tempt them, right?
Exactly.
You tempt them, they know the benefit risk analysis.
Exactly.
They know that everything tilts towards risk rather than benefit. But damn it, that benefit is pretty shiny.
Yeah, but I think that's part of the contract and should be. You should tempt the players and therefore also tell the players inadvertently or as subconsciously that, okay, now you put your character's life on the line. And that is part of making the game fun, because it needs to be risk. And it's like watching a movie. If you knew that none of the characters could die and disappear from the story, it wouldn't be a thriller, wouldn't be that half as interesting. You should expect that character death should be part of the game, so to speak. And I think it has a legitimate and necessary part of the game. That should be, but not necessarily. That doesn't necessarily mean the end of it. It was like I tortured my Shieldlands player and I'll say, oh, if you die, that's not the end. You don't get out of my game that easy, so to speak. Your character would go on even after death in maybe the most horrible circumstances. So you can turn character death not as a relief I get out of the game, but you get to the worst dimension. What happens to your soul, so to speak? Do you get to, is Ayus taking it and using it and so on and so forth? So
you know, I kind of want to come back to something that was raised earlier.
Go for it.
The issue about class.
Yeah.
And that ties into another issue. Jay, Dragon number 291.
Let's go.
Let's
we go.
Rock.
We're going to start there.
Yeah, exactly. Antiquitas zombie goat reincarnation. Yeah.
Page 54, I believe.
Okay.
Let me go
down.
The
article is... Okay. Am I in the right one? 291, right?
Yeah, I believe so. 291. You can pick your friends. Is the name of the article?
Let's see, where are we? 54, you said, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Rich Wolf. Okay.
And notice what the article is about.
Sibling rivalry taken to lethal conclusion. Family
Family
rivalries.
backgrounds for your
Yeah.
characters. And the
Absolutely.
reason I mentioned this is that raised an issue. I won't mention the player's name. If he's listening, I love you, man.
Gary.
But I got to tell the story. No, I got to tell the story regardless. There was a bit where I asked the character. It was during a pitch session. He pitched a character to me, and I said, "Okay, so tell me about your character." And well, he's an orphan, and I was like, the number of you guys who have had either pugilists or fighters or pit fighters or assassins or thieves who are refugees or orphans. I was like, any sane society would start executing orphans on sight and just close themselves off to refugees because apparently everyone goes wrong. And he laughed and went, "Okay, I see your point."
Yeah.
So this is one thing that I think is interesting, like the idea in 5th edition where you have that kind of local hero or folk hero background. That's one way to approach it, where you're among your refugee population or among maybe your orphan community, your street kid community. You were the local hero at one point. Or, maybe tie in the family thing. What are your family ties in this community? Maybe they aren't so good. Maybe they are good. Maybe you're the black sheep of the family. But again, the reason I mention this is that, again, it provides a way of tying it in. Where did your family come from? Did they experience something because of a recent military conflict? Did they, does your family traditionally go on a pilgrimage every so often, but you didn't? What are your family gods? Do you see what I mean? I think this article is a neat way of building that in. And also, what happens when you run across your family? How will your family respond? Will they be glad to see that you're still alive? Or will it be like, here comes trouble?
So, Les, I take a lot of razzing from my guys about my Winchester family, right? And the
Yeah.
Rothschilds. But it's a family tree and all that. But it's noteworthy as far as it gives it something to intertwine them in. Second cousins or whatever. And there are rivalries. There are lawful good characters, particularly 2 high-level knight characters, both female, that and they're lawful good. They both despise each other, and they're from the same family. And that's the kind of cool stuff you can do. I see a lot of this more human-centric, but half-elves running in elven families too.
I think all creatures probably most of them have families. If you play a beholder, you probably don't have a family,
right.
But
there
was another article in one of these dragons actually that tied in the idea of like humanoid family backgrounds, right? Or clan backgrounds, tribal backgrounds.
Yep.
And I think that's another thing. I mean, it's one of the reasons why, again, those Roger Moore articles on from back in the day on the different the humanoid and demi-human.
Oh, they're great.
They're great for drawing on. There's an article that was in Dragon about there have been multiple pieces that tie into orcs, of course. And there are multiple reference books and stuff. But the idea would be then, how is this tribe that you're from? Don't just make it, I'm a generic, you can. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. But you might want to give it a little flavor, a little kick. Like, what is it about this orc tribe? Like, there's a throwaway line in Roger Moore's article about the orcs, right? The orcish point of view, where he mentions that the Vile Rune tribe, which of course is mentioned in the Monster Manual, comes up in Gary Gygax's articles about the Bone March and stuff. That they tend to be that they are heavily into the cult of Luthik, the orc cave mother, yeah. And I thought that was a neat little twist. That's something that separates them in some ways or distinguishes them. They place a somewhat of an emphasis on the cave mother aspect of their pantheon. Whereas others might emphasize other deities or whatnot, and then that gets into the question: how would you be raised in a culture? And there are some references that go into that kind of thing, like what does how does a society, an orcish society that reveres the cave mother, how does it raise its children? Right? How do the mothers?
Yeah, I listed the example of some humanoids I'm developing. They want to make sure that all their young ones are fit for joining the tribe and become good warriors. So they just pop out as many kids as they can, put them in a pit, and pit feed them basically, and let them fight. And the ones that are growing, surviving to be big enough to climb out of the pit are welcomed into the tribe as new warriors, and the rest will just die and be fodder for the other kids because they weren't worthy to begin with. And that's kind of a lawful evil way of raising your kids, as a way that you don't think individually about the kids. It's not about yours or mine. It's about the tribes. And then they're hailed by the whole tribe, and the tribe sits there and cheers on the different ones and see which ones will eventually become, after some months, become big enough or like a couple of years. So they're some years old, and they are like ruthless, hardened, bitter fighters at that age, and there's no going back, so to speak. So there's no escaping it. So and it's also, I think, you can have a really evil culture that also uses it to make sure that no one can go around and fostering their kids to be any little whatever goodlings that you can bet them and socialize them into something else. No, everybody needs to foster their kids in the evil clan spirit of the tribe, so to speak. And
well, there's a
so you can yeah. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say that along those lines, Anna, there's an great article in one of the Dragon magazines about hobgoblin culture.
Yep.
And the premise there is that each of them is basically, through roughness, through violation, through brutality, they're taught that they have your private space is to be defended at all costs.
Yeah.
But collectively, each hobgoblin's private space is the tribe's space.
Yeah. I think that could be seen as neutral evil. That's very true.
Because of the strict hierarchy.
No, I mean, my examples can be seen as neutral evil. I think that's good. Yeah.
Because this is very much a regimented, and the thing is, of course, like, they don't. But I'm just mentioning that as an example of how you can flesh out non-human characters. You can do the same with elves. You can do the same with dwarves.
In fantasy, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that one of the things that I incorporated into my campaign, and this came up in a sort of tragic way, but the idea would be that when dwarves, you have the idea of the forge, and you have the idea of the dwarves as crafted things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Crafted by their god. That when, to me, or rather in my campaign, the dwarves view the act of procreation as forging, basically, where you have the heat and breath, and from that comes something that's been forged, right, and is ready to enter the world. And so if a child is led astray, it's like seeing a broken or a faulty piece of workmanship. It's a disgrace to the clan. It's a disgrace to the family.
Yeah.
It very much ties into this idea of the dwarf as craftsman, the dwarf as master worker, and it reinforces that idea of familial bonds. And so I kind of that's one of the approaches that I take with my dwarves, and I think that kind of reinforces a sense of it being somewhat separate from humans, if that makes sense. Particularly, one of the other articles I was going to recommend.
Yeah, please.
Going back in time to way back in the day. 52? Let me see if I can pull it up. Wait, no, not 52. What was the other one?
96.
It was
96.
96, is the one that I was thinking of.
While you were looking there, I can just throw in to this discussion that I think fantasy fares well when you go into utopias. You can dive deep into utopias, cultural utopias. You can have different types of monsters. You can think out esoteric utopian societies and have different creatures, meaning beholders or aboleths or whatever it is. They can have really weird societies that are completely impossible in the real world and alien, and you can do it for fun and to flavor things really, really well, so to speak. And the problem comes if you want to have your PCs coming from these societies, then you need to rethink them. But as long as it's just NPCs, meaning you can have humanoid tribes having all sorts of horrible ways in their culture in order to make your campaign more interesting, because but you should not. You should always emphasize it's not real. It's not about humans or anything in the real world. This is
exactly and
fantasy and made up make-believe things that don't exist in the real world.
And don't do the easy analog. Well, this is an analog for that culture.
Exactly. Skip that bit. Just go find your cool utopias and go with it, so to speak. And
also, I mean, the thing is too, there you can have the alien cultures, the alien kind of culture, but also with the humanoids and demi-humans. It's like there's certain points of overlap, but there are differences. It's like I like to draw the distinction. It's like and I mean this in the best possible way. The way that Star Trek aliens are similar to but different from humans and exaggerate certain features of humans, versus say a xenomorph or a from the Aliens films, or something from Solaris, right? That movie and novel, where it's a sentient planet kind of idea. It's where it's so trippy and alien that it's completely off the charts. These are kind of reflections and distortions and commentaries on humanity in a way, which is part of why you can role play them, right? It's kind of somewhat more difficult to role play an extra dimensional entity. Because I don't really know. I can conceive of how its mind might work, but actually role playing and putting myself in Cthulhu's brain is going to be a little bit difficult. But anyway, sorry.
I know we always go off on a tangent, but that's okay.
The What Good PCs Are Made Of by Catherine Kerr.
Oh, I was at this new Jobs for Demi-Humans where they made all these. I thought you were going there. So what page is that on?
That is page 10, I believe.
10, okay, so it's right after it. There you go. What good PCs are made of. Cool.
And the reason I was going to mention it is it talks about...
this is Dragon 96, everyone. Dragon 96.
If we assume that, like, there is magic in the world, but it's not used freely, right? You have to... For example, to ask Weejoss to resurrect someone, it's got to be of a certain alignment, ideally Sewell. If it's not, you've got to appeal to her. Otherwise, she's going to be ticked off at her priest for doing it. You've got to offer coins to whatever other temple to resurrect or heal people. It's a kind of exchange. It's a kind of almost a business in a way. The way that magic works there. And with that in mind, and realizing that a lot of people can't afford it, I think that this article is useful to considering certain things. For example, the difference between lower class and working class and upper class families in a medieval or ancient setting.
This was big.
And how they valued children.
Yeah, this is big during the Art Arcana era.
Exactly.
The Cavaliers came in and stuff, and I think it kind of went away. But I still have it on my character sheet. I still have that because I think it ties into a little bit of my game. So
I believe the DMG had like lower class, lower middle class,
all the way up to UC. Yeah, absolutely.
That was a Unearthed Arcana thing. That was somewhat kind of cool. I used it for quite a bit, but it was kind of unfair if someone ended up being urchin and the other one was royalty and stuff. So
that's where again you get into that's when you get back to your session 0 and what kind of campaign are you running?
Yeah, and also with the players. If you have really experienced players who want to go into character and emphasize bits like that and mechanics and balance and getting an extra plus on something is less interesting, then a campaign, when you dig deep into stuff like that, could be really interesting. But for new players, when it's more about mastering the game and understanding the rules and stuff like that, then I should avoid going too deep into those things and keep the whole party at roughly the same level.
But I think it's one of those things too, where again, if you're doing a Furiondi campaign, right?
Yeah.
I always basically this is one of the other questions going back to the issue of character creation that I ask my players. I've had a number of them say, I want to play a paladin, or I want to play Eldritch Knight, whatever. Something along those lines. And I'm like, okay, so what's your backstory? And they're like, backstory? And I'm like, yeah, how come you're hanging out with a party full of thieves, murderers?
Yeah.
And they're like, I didn't think of that. Isn't that your job? And I was like, not really.
No. Yeah, well,
I mean, I could, right? But this is the thing. You want the character. And so I'm willing to work with you, but if you can't give me a pitch where this is a viable option, right? There's a reason for your character.
Mhm.
I could hand you one, but what if you don't like it, or what if you get sick of it? I would much rather you come up with your rationale for hanging out with these guys. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
And
you also, sorry.
I was going to say, in that context, the party, everyone worries about, the components of the party. I've had parties that don't have clerics. I've had parties that don't have magic users. I'll tell you one thing that I tend not to have, which is aristocrats running around with a bunch of dirty peasants, unless they're on the lam from something themselves, or in disguise, traveling incognito, or something like that. And the other characters won't necessarily know. This is the daughter of a noble house who ran off because she didn't want to get married, and decided to go out adventuring in the world, or whatever. I think it's kind of important to give some consideration to thinking about those kinds of how they interact, how they relate.
It depends on location too.
Yeah,
a lot
exactly.
of that depends on background and location. I can see that happening a lot more in your Narwhal game and Wild Coast game than me and my Celine game, area. So,
well, I mean, that's the other thing, and this ties into what this article is kind of talking about, right? And this is also something I would say is relevant, Anna, to our discussion of humanoid backgrounds, and demi-humans. What kind of, are we looking at a stable or surplus economy? Or are we looking at a scarcity economy that these characters come from?
Yeah.
What kind of resources does the territory that they come from have? And the reason I mention that is that can impact. We may not think of it, right? We may not want to think of it, but that can impact your character's entire worldview. I mean, a loaf of bread might mean less to somebody who's in the university district of a major city than it means to someone who's in Greyhawk's old city, right?
Yeah.
And seeing a rat might similarly provoke a different response.
Yeah, when you get hungry or just think that this is a filthy place.
Yeah, versus say someone at court in Firiandi or the Great Kingdom, right?
Yeah.
Although who knows, with the Great Kingdom, they might have their own purposes for rats, and rats might be spies for all we know.
Yeah. But there's also the game system also says, meaning if you take old school games, you were basically barely more than glorified commoners when you started. And then you have 5e where you're more or less some sort of superhero who's already been a soldier or a sailor or something fantastic. And that's an aspect of 5e I don't really like. First of all, I saw an awesome meme that someone said that, oh, this is what your background makes you think you are, and you saw the fully statted like super barbarian, and that's what your stats telling you that you are. And you saw a little tiny little thing with a couple of weapons and who kind of stared up behind the shield, and it was kind of it's the rules don't really live up to the backstories and stuff, and that's an aspect of 5e that is too much superhero
by the DM too.
I think it also depends again on the DM. Because I know in my campaign, like I said, with the gritty realism rules and the idea that once you drop to 0, you gain a level of exhaustion, and that can create a death spiral in combat. And the idea that healing kits can be a factor. All these things wind up changing the mechanics of the game in such a way that it changes the tone, and it changes how certain things play out. Like if you're a barbarian, exhaustion can be a factor for certain types of barbarians.
Meaning how
take your word for it.
Yeah, meaning how gritty and how deadly are your games, so to speak.
Well, exactly. And that ties into as well. I was going to say the class thing. I was going to say, if we go back to Gygax, if we go back to the Gord novels, right? You have Deirdre and her brother in Artifact of Evil, and of course she's looking down her nose at
pretty much
Gord
everything.
and company, because she's this noble female warrior from Hardby, and these are a bunch of ruffians, right? You also have with Gord himself. We were talking about backstories. He's simultaneously a Dickensian orphan with a mysterious past and benefactor type figure, but he's also kind of ties into that changeling archetype, right? He's a character who's connected to the Cat Lord and who has all this kind of ancestral connection to the supernatural. So you've got a neat kind of combination. And then also one of the things I was going to mention is not every character needs a, how can I put this? A lot of people like the idea of some traumatic event happened to a character. This defined the character. This is why the character is going out to do something. And I'm like, that can be extremely limited. Like, say your character's family was murdered in front of him as a child and he's sworn revenge. What happens when he gets his revenge? Is he no longer interested in adventuring? Is he no longer interested in the side quests? Or does he from that become a Batman type figure where it's not just Joe Chiles going after, it's a war on crime, right? To protect.
Are you ready? I'm going to quote a movie. I'm sorry for using the term, the short person in High Plains Drifter. He says to Clint Eastwood's character, the man with no name, right? He goes, "What do we do after we've done it? What then?" Then Clint Eastwood says back to him, "Then you live with it." That's it.
Because that's another thing, is that you can have some sort of consequence to that.
Mordecai, good job, Curtis.
Or you can have the character. Another possibility is that it turns out that the bad guy was actually the agent or a proxy for another bad guy, right?
Yeah.
So you only think you've solved the problem, but in fact you've killed a valuable resource for some greater evil.
Or it spins off into another, the behind the scenes thing. Yeah, there's all sorts. Yeah, it's awesome.
But the one thing with that though that I want to emphasize is that it's possible to create a backstory that places limits on a character. And a DM and a player, when they're getting together, should be very conscious of that. I'm thinking too, also, by the way, but on the other hand, certain experiences certainly could inform. I think of, again, going back to Gygax, in the Gord novels, you have Bugbear and the other thugs who, he's not an actual Bugbear, he's named that because of his looks, I believe, who beat up on young Gord. And young Gord basically, mature Gord comes back and beats the crap out of them at the end of the novel. Mm-hmm. But also you have when Gord runs into those children who saw their parents slaughtered by Obmi and company, and he basically swears to them, I swear, he makes sure that they have a priest that'll take care of them, and he's like, I swear to you that your parents will be avenged. And you can sense that has something to do with his own childhood as well. It's not directly stated. Or the way that he wants to look out for those two apprentices who run off after him, Shirt and company. And it's like, yeah, well, now they're criminals because they kind of stole stuff from their master. And Gord's like, no, I'll leave a note and I'll do this. I'll leave them some coin. You could see these moments in that kind of plot, that kind of setup, where these elements from a character's past inform their present. And I kind of want to emphasize that you don't have to have every player character recount their past at the table or know each other's past. Sometimes it's a little thing like someone playing the harmonica.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's a little thing like Gord's reaction to those kids that reveals, because Gord's a bit of a jerk, let's face it, through some of the novels. But he has these moments, particularly when it has to do with kids who've suffered, where you're like, huh.
Right.
And it's suddenly a bit more identifiable.
It's a cool, overall, just an awesome concept. Thought to do that, the revenge factor, especially. I love it.
One other thing related to that I want to throw out there for DMs is I talked earlier about bards and about knowledge. How about the DM doesn't necessarily have a character make an arcana roll or a history roll. It's just your character knows this because of something in the character's past,
Absolutely.
Right? Something's been established. And at that point, not only does the information get conveyed, but what I want to emphasize is the other players now, unless you've put everything on the table, are going to wonder, hey, how did you know that?
Yeah.
And maybe they have a conversation like, so back there when you knew what that creature was,
No, it's no.
and it opens the possibility of them having conversation and things being revealed, right, about the character.
I mean, you're talking about you're specifically. This goes up to specifically an NPC of mine that's in Horror in the Holes, Fion, that Curtis loves so much. Her whole family was slaughtered by the boogeyman of Altamira.
Yeah.
So, like, she knows that like there's something still roaming around the streets of Altamira that takes you away in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Only poor people, though. Why
is
that? It's bad. Yeah.
Or maybe your magic user or wizard or whatever suddenly reveals to the characters that, hey, he knows this ancient language, or he knows Infernal or something like that. And it's like, wait, you know Infernal? Why do you know Infernal again?
Yeah. Not Fritz. That's funny. I'm sorry.
No.
The chat has got me going here now. Not Fritz. Not Fritz. Fritz was in jail most of his life. Yeah. So that's funny though. No, you're dead on, man. You could add in so many of those little. They're just character plot hooks. Develop them and the light bulb goes off. Yeah, it's great. It's great. Les, absolutely. All right. So
go ahead. Okay. One other thing that I kind of wanted to mention was on Dragon Magazine. This is a piece by someone whose work I highly recommend. This would be Dragon Magazine number 275.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I got it.
And if you scroll down to page 62, and let me make sure I get down there too.
62. Oh, look, it's all
this relates to what you were saying about the boogeyman, in fact.
10 ways for players to drive the story.
Yep.
Cool.
Like having their ways that their backstory weaves into the narrative, right?
Yeah.
Because it's one thing sometimes you drop a hook and the players will ignore it, etc. But if it's something that gets under the character's skin, right? That's one way to develop a hook. And this article by Robin Laws, of course, has done a lot of work with mythos-related RPGs and stuff like that. He also used to write a fair amount for Dragon Magazine and for some of the for a few source books back in 2E as well. But you'll notice that on that first page of the article, useful jargon. Backstory and hook are jargon terms used by screenwriters and other creators of genre fiction. And it mentions I kind of like this. In a role-playing game, the DM and other players can really learn your backstory only if you talk about it during play. You can write up pages of backstory and hand them out for everyone to read, but how fun is that? How would the other PCs know all that stuff anyhow? So the idea becomes memorable characters are simple characters.
Yeah.
And there's something about them. And then he gets into here the idea of the nemesis, the idea of, basically using the backstory to generate hooks for the player, and by extension, the thing. Atonement. You once did something terrible you hope to atone for. The mission. You obsessively pursue an ongoing obligation. Unlike the questing hero, your mission will never be completed. If you want a good example of that, Batman, right? The war on crime.
Yep.
There will always be crime, but damn it, Batman is going to do his best to try and make sure that there are no more little Bruce Waynes in the world, if that makes sense.
Here's one that happened yesterday morning, The Curse.
Yep.
I just used it.
Yep.
That's funny.
And it's great, I think,
yeah.
It's a great article. It's worth looking at. Some of Law's other stuff.
Ambition.
Worth looking at and considering and incorporating,
Lost
I think.
Love. Disinherited. That's Lord Drager's Deposed. I mean, it's awesome. Oh, there she is. All right, you stick tight there, Christy, because I'm gonna, now that you're both on and Blue Box is rated in, I'm gonna take a 5 to 10 spot here, Les. This is awesome, Les.
Yeah.
So these are just like Scottish Jeff. These are later edition dragons. I didn't have these.
Oh, they're
I
great.
had to find, quote unquote, I had to find them. So
I think that's the golden age of Dragon.
you
Those are
think
some of the
so?
best.
See,
Oh, that's
I guess it's
Paizo
what you
era.
know. I like the 60s
Oh yeah,
and
that's
70s.
Paizo era. Dragon
Yeah.
was simply awesome. Yeah.
There was a lot of good stuff. I'm always partially inclined, and we'll look back on the
But I like,
Gygax Lakovka moment in a bit.
Yeah.
But
that
yeah,
was
I
the
like a lot of the
second,
material that was in
yeah,
there.
it was the second golden age. The first was the first some years were awesome, and then they were kind of a down. It was going down, and then when Paizo took over, they really increased the game, and production values and stuff were fabulous. Those years were fantastic. Dragon and Dungeon magazines.
And while we were talking about character generation, there was one other thing for generating these kinds of hooks that I was going to recommend. Jay, you didn't find the Jaquet book, I know.
No, I didn't.
Let me explain to the audience what it is. Back in I think it was early 90s, Paul Jaquet, now Janelle Jaquet, published a book called Central Casting. And while some of it is dated, and some of the assumptions in it are dated, it is literally an entire book full of tables and mini games, if you will, for generating fantasy characters. And you can pick any one of these. You don't even have to roll on the tables. You can just pick one. Like, let me see. Basically, here's a good one. When you were a child, you went missing for a full year. No one knows what happened to you, and you have no memory. To you, it just seemed like a day passed.
That feels like Judges Guild works in all those one-liners they had back in the day.
It's probably because Janelle worked on, as you know, Dark Tower,
absolutely,
and Caverns of Thracia,
yep,
and
definitely.
several others. But it's an entire book. No, Scottish Jeff, it's not. It's more akin to. I would argue it's not akin to the Traveler character generation. Right. It's little blurbs.
Yeah.
And Amy's right. There are versions for superheroes and science fiction as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Great, but it's a great. They're a great resource. They're kind of hard to come by now, but I understand that Janelle was working on an updated version of it.
Oh, cool.
But of course now she's suffering her health.
Exactly. I hope she gets.
Knock on wood, and
better and stuff.
Best wishes to her, because she is an inspiration.
Amazing designer, amazing.
My guess, Lee, is it's all generic because Janelle does a lot of generic stuff. So
it was system neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you can use it, and I've used it with my party. Sometimes I just have them like you were kidnapped as a child. You roll. And you can have things where you were kidnapped by pirates, and what happened to you when you were a young person while you were being raised by pirates. You were kidnapped by bandits. You were carried off to hell.
Oh dear.
There are all kinds of neat little tables.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. If you're an aristocrat, what happened at court?
Now you're getting me more and more intrigued. I want to see this.
Yeah.
I missed it. I want to see this.
As long as it doesn't say camping trip goes horribly awry, consult Limlaw subtable on there somewhere.
There you go.
Subtable of subtables. Those were the days. Yeah.
But there have been times, like for my very first group, because they didn't know what to do with their characters. Some of them. What I did was I took the old cyberpunk role-playing game Life Path thing, filed off some of the serial numbers so that instead of you were killed in a corporate war or by a gang, sometimes it would be a gang, sometimes it would be like your parents were killed by the Thieves Guild or the Assassins Guild, and I'd mix stuff from those tables with stuff from the Janelle Jaquet book, and we'd get all these interesting combinations, if that makes sense, for these characters' backstories. And I loved the fact that you could have something where you had a lover. Or you had a partner. The partner became your lover. Now the partner wants to kill you. So stuff like that, which is also some of the elements in the Jaquet book. I highly recommend. Really, really good stuff.
Great one, and I'm going to look for it myself too. Thank you very much, Raids, for make my day. So I got a little burning cocoa on now, and Les, you helped out with something big yesterday. So let's go over real quick what the results of this session 0 were in character development that happened here, since they're both on. So and also did all the portraits up. Now the character sheets are not finalized, but I got all the stats down. So this is what was the name of the character, the bird name that you gave, Les, to this character? Do you remember?
I think it wound up being Ornithala, but I had intended
I have
Ornithala,
Ornithera
but it's
down.
okay.
Yeah, Ornithera.
Ornithala.
Yeah.
Ornithala was what I originally
Yeah,
had, but
I
because
think-
orna as in bird.
Yeah, I think she went with
But-
Ornithera. Yeah,
So that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and so a duelist, half elf duelist from the House Paddle which is in the north of Selene. So background wise, Christy wanted to play. Every time, talking about Clerk Mage. I sneak up on her every adventure and backstab her, do something to her from behind. She's like, I want to play a fighter this time, but I don't want to play a cavalier. I don't want to play, So we went with the duelist class, and the duelist is from Dragon 73 with some minor modifications. So and here's the character done up, half elven. So yeah, it's awesome. Really a cool thing. Her best stat, strength is 17, dex is 18. 4th level, and then you get die 12. Right, duelist. So 4th level with a con with a +1 for con, 46 hit points to start off at this 4th level character. I'm only giving them each one magic item, and that's character number 1 for this new group. And the reason I'm talking about this is I'm going to tell you in a second. I got a busy day on December 9th, and we'll talk about that during shoutouts. But I'm going to run 2 special games on the 9th, one in the morning and one in the night. And it's going to be the same both of them, adventure, part 1, part 2. 2 different groups. See how that goes. I think it's going to be fun. So, die 12's a lot. Duelists, barbarians get die 12s in old school. All right, so that is Ornithera of House Paddlemeal. Now and she's half elven. Her friend, this is Courtney's character. Whoops, should have come up. There it is. All right. So here's Courtney's character. So we made her Faunalin, House Gestrul. That's Lorca Zumba's house, right next to House Paddlemeal. She is a full-blooded Grey Elf, fighter mage. Really cool. I always love fighter mages. Anna has Emery, a ranger mage. So I explained. I explained to Courtney how slow that ranger mage goes up because
it takes forever. I played her 15 session. I think I've leveled up once.
So she went with the fighter mage instead. So she's going to be 4/3 fighter mage. So she'll have access to 2nd level spells. 25 hit points. All right. A high stat for her is intelligence 16 and dex of 17. So, yep, there you go. Whereas chainmail, full-blooded Grey Elf, and so here's the little catch. So there's another character in the campaign who's from House Gestrul, who's a fighter mage as well, but she's half elven. She's in 2 drink minimum. Do you know who I'm talking about, Anna?
Not at the top of my head.
Tony's character.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So here's Noxolia, 6/6 fighter mage, half elf. So she is your niece. So you have a sister or a brother, and she is your niece. So you may run across her in a future adventure. Unfortunately, Tony won't be there for the night game. But yes, so you have a niece out there adventuring already who's half elven. So there you go, little connection to the groups and all. So
Jay, I was going to ask, do you do henchmen and hirelings at all?
Only on rare occasions, because I tend to, with the group, I don't do them with my players because they all already play 2 characters, normally in the games. But once in a blue moon, it'll come across, that will happen in a group with 4 or 5. In fact, like, for example, I let, if you count this, I let, like, Darling's barbarian, fighter, barbarian. She has a wolf now, a companion. So I allow that. Yeah, it just depends. Why do you ask that, Les?
The reason I asked that is we were talking about introducing characters and tying characters to the setting, getting them involved in the setting and in things. And I was thinking, I mentioned when I got my girlfriend Jen to play D&D for the first time, and she was obsessed with the idea of goblins. Okay. She wanted, can I have a goblin sidekick or a henchman?
That's a good idea.
And so what I did was I was like, oh, absolutely. Now, of course, she doesn't know what she's got in store for her. So what I have is she's got these 2 little goblin sidekicks. Shitzer and Pisspot are their names. And they are the last survivors of their tribe. She came upon them when a raiding party of Tourish Max orcs had killed all but them, and they're fairly young for goblins, right? So basically, she manages to drive off the enemies, and they're like, "Please don't kill us! Please don't kill us!" and offer their assistance. And of course, they're like, "Well, we could kill her while she sleeps." But then they started realizing, but you have Taurish Max orcs and these other goblins who serve him around, and the elves want to kill us, and the rangers want to kill us, and she seems to be able to get along with those people. So maybe if we tag along with her, we won't get killed. And over time, it becomes a matter where their instincts still kick in, right?
Right.
They still have a thing. Their pickled toes was a delicacy in their tribe, so they still have a tendency to bite people's toes and try to. And in one fact, at one point, a criminal gang paid them in toes in exchange for their services. But the thing is that they became both a benefit to the party. They were great. You can imagine they're great at scouting. They're great at snooping.
Yeah.
But they're also kind of a burden.
Yes.
Like you have to kind of look after them.
A bar without having problems.
And there's that. And then there's I remember this was it wasn't only for her where she wound up having these great moments of role play, but there was a character who he had started off as an assassin. Things had gone really bad with him, and he wanted to redeem himself, right? So he had this whole kind of atonement arc where he was trying to set off to do something that would redeem the blood that he had on his hands. And this was just a little incidental thing, but at one point, one of the goblins was about to get killed. It would have been a killing blow, right? Mm-hmm. And he asked me, can I jump in front and take the blow? I know it's not my turn, but... And I was like, rules be damned. Yes, you can.
Sure.
And he went ahead and took the thrust. And later, the goblins got up to some mischief afterward. But one of the goblins, the goblin he had saved, came up and sat down next to him. And they were having a conversation. And he was like, they were like, the goblin was basically pointing out, you don't really seem like the rest of the Longshanks around here. You seem kind of like you don't fit in. And he's like, that's because I've done some bad stuff. And the goblins, they have an exchange, if that makes sense, about how hard it is to try and get along in polite society. And sometimes it's hard to do the right thing. And then the goblin asks him, why did you save me? And he just paused and said, it just seemed like the thing to do. And the goblin just reached out, put its claw on his hand, and you could tell the goblin was having difficulty articulating this. It didn't know the word, and it just said thank you and then walked off.
I was going to say give him toes or something as a gift to eat or something, but yeah.
It did try at one point leaving him some toes, so yeah. But yeah, it was a great way of, and if that makes sense, it was just these goblins got him invested, and then in turn that feeds into their contempt for Taurish Mac.
Right. No, that's cool.
So yeah.
So we have once in a blue moon we'll have some henchmen. It just depends on the situation, size of the party. And the last goblin one I remember was named Teepee. Not Poopa or Kaka. Teepee. Teepee got killed when a wizard and they were assaulting a tower, and he was leading because he always charged, and a wizard shot all of his ring of shooting stars, outdoor at night on him, and that was it. Boom. Because you can imagine the amount of how deadly rings of shooting stars are, So yeah.
Curtis is reminding me that in the one shot, when Patrick's character died and was basically, along with a web golem, banished, and it triggered this mechanism that wound up decapitating poor Patrick. But Patrick had gotten into it with Curtis's character's goblin slave earlier in the adventure. And the goblin slave, the party's just shocked, right? A PC has just died. And then the goblin goes, serves you right, you bastard. And, of course, the party just suddenly, it manages to... That's the other great thing, is you can use these characters as comic relief and to offset some of the darker moments.
Yeah, his name was TP there, Patrick, yes. It's short. You get it. Yeah. So...
I tend not to run, Amy. I tend not to run parties larger than four to six.
Right, so. which works really well for a henchman here and there. When I got 10 characters running around out there, there's just no room.
Exactly.
So it's another play style thing. All right, so I'm gonna round table this here because I know time is pressing. Give the audience each, Anna, start first, Les second. Give them a couple pointers or tips you think would be good. Hey, bringing in new players into your group, or starting up with new characters, and adding them into existing groups. From this discussion, what do you think?
First, I think every group is great to have a new player, someone who hasn't played role-playing games before. That is really cool to have that, because then you have someone with that everything is new and shiny and cool and stuff that brings in new puppy energy into the game, so to speak. That was kind of a crass expression, but it's a way of saying it. But I think it's really cool. Someone who is enjoying role-playing game for the first time, that is really good. So don't hesitate to bring in someone just because they haven't played before. That can be a huge asset into it, so to speak. It can be a lot of fun. And also, don't oversell your game initially as Greyhawk, so to speak. Let that grow into it, so to speak. And let lore kind of growing organically into your game, so to speak. As the story should unfold, it should be, after a while, it's like, oh, it is really Greyhawk, and this is why it is flavored that way, so to speak. So it's and also then advice as a DM depends on your playstyle. You might be situational. You might think in scenes, and then you should plan in scenes, and you run a fairly railroady game. That's one extreme to go, meaning you have the scenario, the scenes, and you plan the scenes, and you do the mapping, and you whether you finding stuff, and so you plan for each scene. That's one extreme way of going. You can go the other extreme that I'm doing. You take an area and you basically develop everything in that area. Let the players loose, and then you go for it. Both have drawbacks and so on, and almost all games are, of course, somewhere in between the two extremes, so to speak. So you need to start thinking in how much you want to railroad the game, or how little, so to speak. And also the other advice is plan one step further than the players demand, so to speak. So have one level deeper than the players are asking for. That is just a guideline, because to live up to it is almost impossible, but it should be kind of a guideline in the back of your head, so to speak. So if you have demanding players that start asking a lot of questions, that means that they're interested in it, which means that you should have those answers and then a few extra, so to speak. But if the players don't seem to care one crap about heraldry, don't develop it, skip it, so to speak. If they never ask for it, and when you present it, if they don't show any interest, then don't do it unless you really want to. It's different for me who's using it in order to solicit donations from others. So I have another incentive. But so develop what your players want and what you are interested in as a DM, and spend time on it, and do it one step deeper than what's demanded of the game, so to speak, because that way you don't run out of ideas. And also plan when you have the inspiration. Meaning you come up with an idea, whatever, have a note block or an app on your phone, so you write down the cool idea. The cool idea might not fit your game currently, but keep all these good ideas in a little stash somewhere on an app somewhere, or piece of paper or a notebook or something, and keep them. And then look through them every time you have some time over, when you sit on an airport and have 3 hours to kill, or you're doing a long commute, whatever. Look through these ideas, and it's like, and eventually you will connect dots that weren't there, so to speak. And when you read lore, you can take your ideas and you can kind of match it. And that's my other thing. Read lore, read the lore. And I've read things 20 times over, and when I read it the 21st time, I see it as in new light, because I've read other stuff, and you guys have told me things and stuff, and all of a sudden I see this little nugget. I saw something in there that I never saw the other 19 times I read it, and all of a sudden, like, I get a new idea. Write down that idea, and then you can forget about it, because if you write it down, you can go back and remember it, so to speak. So that's and especially when you get older like me, you tend to lose things that way, and you have to kind of write them down, and then you can pick them up again. These are some of the ideas that I think are invaluable in order to develop deep campaigns and interesting story arcs and stuff. And then think about how things are connected, not only at the moment, but think about how they got to be where they were. Develop back history, meaning who built this keep? Why is it there? What is the backstory? Who was buried there? Who's been killed there? Who's been born there? And what have these walls seen? Because if you start thinking like that, you come up with all sorts of cool stories that then become plot hooks. And then means that, oh, if this warlord built this keep and then he went away on a war and got killed somewhere else, what if there's things that someone goes looking for him, and where's his treasure? Where's the hidden things, the things that he didn't bring, and what his kids are, whatever. So you connect the story through these disparate little things that you put together, and eventually over time with the lore you weave a story. And when you do a Greyhawk game, add to the lore. Change the things that you feel like you need to, but don't change things just because, so to speak. Try and build lore on top, or your game on top of the lore, not instead of it. But if you feel like you have a good reason to change lore, then do it. But it should be a deliberate decision. Don't just skip things because you're lazy or something like that. Meaning, and if you want to be lazy, stay in one little area and adventure more there, and then venture further when you feel you have enough on your in your lore bank, so to speak, that you've studied the topic enough, so to speak.
I've always said, Anna, there's no need to go macro right off the bat. There's
exactly.
no
Don't go
to know every little bit of lore in Greyhawk.
Exactly. And invent a little place that doesn't have any lore, and then you can invent whatever you want, so to speak. Just pick a realm, read the stuff that is written about that realm. There might be 2 pages, and then invent a place in that realm and just go the heck, and you can develop it as deep as you want. Absolutely. Without needing any of the lore. And then when you get bored of tired of that area 5 years later, then you pop over the border to the next and do the same thing in that area. And that's how you build your depth, so to speak, into it.
I think I would add too, in terms of that, I would say use a breadcrumb approach. And by that I mean, I would refer back to an earlier episode of one of your shows, Jay, where the discussion was involved, for example, factions of Greyhawk. Now, a lot of characters starting out some of these factions they may never have heard of, right? And same thing with cults. You may never have heard of some of these cults or factions. But it turns out that a character whose plot you foil is a member of that, and then that one event leads to another, and as you're following the breadcrumbs, you wind up deeper and deeper until you realize that you are in a maze, and now you have to extricate yourself. It's a way of not feeding the lore, because let's face it, not every character in this world is going to know everything the DM knows, nor do they need to.
Right.
That's one thing. The other thing that I think is kind of important with this would be to not be afraid to allow your characters, like I said, if the backstory hasn't been stated, you can pull what I like to think of as a Vidocq, right? Eugene Vidocq. He was a French criminal. He started out, basically stole his according to his memoirs, which were ghostwritten, stole his middle-class family's silverware and stuff, hawked it, became kind of a street thug, did a bunch of time in prison, wound up going to a very secure prison where he allegedly forged papers to get another prisoner out. His mistress helped him escape. He was a wanted man. He enlisted in the military and then deserted. He did all this stuff, and then he returned to his mother's house, was hiding out. Everyone in Paris wants him. He's a master of disguise, but he still wound up getting found out. And that's when he decided that he was going to use... just before he was arrested, he saw one of his childhood connections, his childhood contacts, get executed publicly. And he had a road to Damascus moment, and when he basically allowed himself to be apprehended, so he claims, and wound up creating the French police, the Sûreté, as we know it today, and becoming one of the leading criminologists. He's a person who inspired Javert in Victor Hugo's Les Miserables.
Oh wow.
He inspected in Vautrin in Balzac, and of course Poe's detective, right, in the Murders in the Rue Morgue and so forth. We're all inspired by this guy. But I think it's a classic example where you have, if you will, a potential story arc, and then it goes in another direction. I mean, this is a well-to-do guy who, for reasons explainable only to himself, became a street thug and a forger and a master of disguise, who then became a soldier. And, you know, that's a hell of a backstory for a cop.
Yeah.
And you can see why people were drawn to that, why writers were drawn to that, because it's a great kind of a narrative.
So that
and
sounds
you can do similar things.
Les, that sounds like the Gord novels. Where would Gord be if the war between the Beggars Guild and the Thieves Guild never happened?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Exactly, and that's one thing. And then the another thing that I want to just pitch to people to look at and give some consideration to would, of course, be Dragon 52, the Len Lakofka piece with an introduction by Guy Gax called "Adding Depth to the Flaness," where it does get into stuff. Characters' place of birth, the languages they know, the origins, like potentially for birthplaces for demi-humans, main table.
What page?
You don't have to use. You don't have to use these tables. That is page 18. Is where it starts.
Good old Leonard.
I think is that the same one they reproduced in the Greyhawk box set?
A good chunk of it. There are some differences.
Okay. Yeah.
And also, it gets into numbers of languages known and languages for demi-humans. And then there's an appendix on racial types and cultures. It's a really interesting article, and it gives you some idea of how to add some flavor again in terms of character from an early, a very early perspective of the development of Greyhawk. And it's something that I riff off of periodically. So I hope that at any rate, I hope that my waffling on has been beneficial.
No, come on, man, it's been awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that'll be the thing is I like to think that there's part of the world that will be a mystery to the characters. There's a lot of the world that will be a mystery to to players. And the balancing act is figuring out what the players should know versus what the characters should know to some extent, if that makes sense. It's like the player might know something coming in from having played in a previous Greyhawk thing or having read a book or something, or they might know nothing. But what does the character know, and how do you feed the character, and what ties into the character's life? What's relevant to the character's interests, as people say. So, yeah, there you go. That would be some of my suggestions.
Well, it is much appreciated, and this is a great article if you want to really randomize things too, or just get some ideas. That'll be another thing. Yeah. Leonard is sorely missed. So, okay, while we got the crowd on here, so I've been talking a lot about these groups and all, and everything's going on. I'm going to do what's going on first before shoutouts this time. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. All right, Amy. We'll see you Wednesday. Wednesday night, we got, in fact, there won't be a game on Thursday, obviously, because of Thanksgiving, but Legends of Lore Wednesday night, we got Amy.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Amy sent me a bunch of stuff. So
awesome.
I got the stuff for it, and we're going to talk about, her three main areas. It's going to be a really fantastic discussion, and that'll be myself, Mike, and Anna with Amy Thala on Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Now, there will be a Gabbin next week. Not sure what it is, just like I didn't know what this one was till yesterday afternoon. Let's fast forward. The week after. 15th ever DM's Roundtable discussion. Whoops, out of order. All right, here we go. Going to crank out some stuff here. I probably hit the wrong button. I don't know which one it is. I'm going to guess it's that one. That's wrong. Of course I hit the wrong button. There we go. So, DM's Roundtable discussion. We're going to have a legend. She's huge on Instagram. Take a look. Punk Rock Jenny. Really great
awesome.
DM. Yeah. Along with Ed Greenwood. end the discussion. Anna and I, we're going to talk about challenging running D&D campaign. That'll be a real fun one. That's going to be our next. I've never had Ed on a DM's Roundtable. So, yes. So, yeah, Ed is awesome. Yeah, that'll be really good. Jenny, Punk Rock Jenny's really excited about just chatting with Ed. You never had the opportunity to do that. So that is Sunday, December 3rd, 8 p.m. start, because the Eagles game's at 4. This is how you know. If there's an Eagles game at 4 o'clock p.m. on Sunday, Gabbin starts at 8. If not, it starts at 7. Okay.
Oh, you're unplugged. Yep.
Jay, you're unplugged.
Yeah, I know.
Yep.
I was replugging at that time. Yes. So yes, that's how you know. All right. So that's Sunday, December 3rd. The week after, this is where Coco and Little Bird, you're gonna like this. All right. I'm gonna add 2 more players to this. So this is going to be a 2-part adventure. The Deadly Drowned Part 1. We're gonna have a new group, 4th level characters. Starting out, will be out of Altamira. So I'm gonna add at least 2 more people to this. But here are the first 2. That'll be at 9 a.m. I'm really insane because I'm gonna have a game Thursday night too. I can't believe I'm doing this after my first week at my new job too. Saturday 9 to 1, we'll have this adventure, Part 1 of this. Part 2 will be 2 drink minimum at 6 p.m. that night. Okay? For Part 2 of the Deadly Drowned. Yes. So, and that's Ed. Ed, Eric Menke, Anna, Eric Boyd's 50-50, but I don't know how I want to miss this. And Darling's going to play. Darling's going to play in the group.
Awesome.
So I may add 1 more person to this too. Okay? Especially if something happens to Eric Boyd. But yeah, so that's the groups. So it's a double header. It's a twinighter or whatever. It's a morning, evening session double header. More Ed. Yes. So there you go. 2 drink minimum. We'll be back. It'll be a fun one, and that'll be Saturday evening at 6 p.m. So I'll have a little break in between. But yeah, same topic, same, lower level, higher level. Okay. There you go. Shout outs are done. So, Les, what do you got going on in your world, man?
Oh, man. So, one of the other things that I was going to mention is, because it's relevant, there should be some material that'll be appearing from me in the next few months, I think. It ties into some stuff in my ongoing campaign, where there are magic items that require research. You can use Identify on them.
Love it.
But the creators were pretty darn super powerful and didn't want to give away all their secrets. So you might find out what it is, but you're not always going to find out how to use it. So you'll have to consult NPCs like people from, say, Sewell noble families or scholars and so forth. Or you'll have to go into a library and try and convince the librarian that you need a certain book as research. So that little things like that. I've got a few pieces coming up here and there. I'm also working on my current campaign is on hiatus because one of our players, his wife is about to give birth. So congrats to him. And of course the holidays are up, which makes things difficult for some players. But I'm also working on a holiday one-shot called Dead by Need Fast, which apologies to anyone out there who catches the Hanoi Rocks reference. But it's going to be an interesting little one-shot, again taking place in Spine Castle. I'm opening it up. Anyone who wants to join in, just reach out to me. We'll see what we can do. None of my games are streamed. It's all just on Discord. So that'll be fun. And in addition to that, I've got coming up on Greycast, we're going to be doing more Appendix N. We are going to be doing the Victorian Gothic, which is the body of literature that came out at the turn of the 1800s into the 1900s. We'll be looking at stuff like Bram Stoker's Jewel of Seven Stars, and of course Dracula. We'll be looking at some of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's supernatural tales, including his mummy stuff. We'll be looking at wonderful stuff like Richard Marsh's The Beetle, some more obscure texts, Arthur Machen, The Great God Pan, and all that creepy stuff that helped influence Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard, and H. Rider Haggard. Shee and Alan Quatermain and stuff like that. So we're going to be covering just that as a body of literature that influenced the pulps that in turn influenced D&D, and how you can see some definite influences from some of these works on specific Greyhawk modules and adventures early on. And also, I want to particularly emphasize the way that you can still mine these books for material, or tweak some of that material for contemporary audiences. And
Nice.
Mummies, man. Mummies and vampires and supernatural fae folk. And
Mummies are so rarely used in Greyhawk, man. I think they should be used more. I love mummies.
I love mummies
I
too.
love mummies. I know it may not fit the setting, but I don't care. I just
Well,
love
you
them.
can. I mean, bear in mind, a mummy doesn't have to be an Egyptian mummy.
True, true.
You have bog mummies, for
Oh
example,
yeah,
and things
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So
Mummies in the ice, in the
exactly,
wastes,
there are
yeah.
all kinds of wet mummified corpses. So
Good point.
And just attach some ancient jewelry and an old curse, and you've got yourself a party, man.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be doing that, and yeah, so I've got stuff like that coming up. And also it's the holidays, so I'm going to be relaxing and recharging the batteries. I've been looking through some of the old first edition books, and particularly the monster manual, and scoping out stuff about some obscure monsters that I want to work with. And so yeah, that's basically where we are. And my campaign will be resuming as soon as my players are recovered from childbirth and or tryptomanofen or whatever.
Well, look at this, Les. I mean, you did the elven tree, the ancestor trees, man. I jumped right on that stuff. So
and that's a great example of tying character into setting, man.
Absolutely. If you
did a wonderful job.
Thank you. Keep up those ideas coming, man. Write them up in Visions or wherever, whatever publication, because I'll use them anytime, man. I love this stuff. So
I appreciate that.
Of course, my pleasure. And thanks for coming on tonight. This was
that was my pleasure.
I know. I knew you'd really you'd bring a perspective outside of what Anna and I would our direction would be, and I really appreciate that.
It's great. Thank you, Les.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you guys for putting up with me.
Of course. Anna, what do we got?
First, there will be a new mapping live stream on Friday. Even if it's Thanksgiving weekend and stuff. So I'll squeeze it in there. No problem. And now also I've done I wanted to do a small little update on Shieldland's historical map and some heraldry. I thought filling out a few blanks. I thought this has been my biggest black hole I've ever put my head into, but now it's finally close and close to being ready. There will be 50 plus new heraldry on this, and a few of them, but there will be at least over 40 new ones and a bunch of them, and probably close to 50 new ones, and there will be probably about 60 when I'm done, but I'm very, very close to just a couple of days more, because, and not only the heraldry, there will be the write-up, the design behind it, and the story behind each of these shields and the heraldry.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so because I felt like just putting out heraldry, it's not just a design thing. It's I want the story behind it. And so these are the story behind it. And so I had to take a deep dive into the history of the Shieldlands. And there I discovered there are some errors on my map and stuff. So I've tweaked it. There are some names and some places and stuff that needs to be switched around. And to be honest, this will be by far the biggest blog post I've ever made. And I'm really, really proud. There are some cool ones like Halmarder the Cruel. What did his shield look like? And there's awesome. A bunch of cool critters from history and stuff in there, and there are places that also are closely connected with the Shieldlands, like the Deep Shuttle Delve, for instance. What's their heraldry and so on, and some of that story. The story of Ringland, my version of why IUs couldn't invade Ringland, and the story of the Ringland shield is really cool. and so that is in there too, with like 4 or 5 different versions. How come the wild boar is on the shield of Ringland? What does that come from, and how long has it been there? What versions of that shield have existed the past 600 years? And so stuff like that. So this is a big rabbit hole, but I want to set a standard for what you can do if you really do. I would say a 5-year deep dive into a realm of Greyhawk. What you can do, more like setting an example of what you can do, and some cool designs and stuff. You've probably seen about 10 of these, and they will probably be about 60 when I'm done.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome!
Yeah.
Wow, nice.
Yep. So it's good, and it will bring my total shields that I've done for Greyhawk over 400, probably closer to 500.
That's why you need to all be part of our Patreon to get them right away.
Yep. So this one I will probably, so this one will come to my patrons, and I need to zip them all up and upload them, so it will be a zip file as well, and looking at them on the blog. So that is the stuff coming out very soon. And now I'm getting close. It's only, I have Castle Mukos and the Baronet Mukos. His heraldry needs to be designed, and then I'm pretty much wrapped up when it comes to the design part. And then it's just writing up a few texts. But anyone who has any idea of the Castle Mukos heraldry of the Baronet Mukos, he's from Greyhawk, hailing from Greyhawk, and he built his castle 200 years ago. What does that mean? And stuff. So that's one. So if you have any ideas, please shoot me a message on whatever medium you're on, so to speak, and send that. So that is the one that I have left to design. I think all the other ones are designed, and it's also fun to make old rusty versions and also pristine versions, meaning what these shields look like in its heyday. And if you find one today, what do they look like? And if there are survivors, I have the story of where you can find Halmara the Cruel's shield if you want to go look for it. And some other stuff, meaning how many of these shields are there and where can you find them? So that story is on not all of them, but on a lot of them. So it's a deep dive, and hopefully setting a standard that at least to set a standard for me, what I want developed when it comes to heraldry.
Are you on the Friday after Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So I will be on the Friday after Thanksgiving as well, and work on some stuff. That's the next big thing coming. And after that, there's a bunch of, but I don't, and like I say, my next heraldry project after this is going to be Horned Society and the Horned Lands. That's the next one. Yeah, because that ties into this campaign. And I realized there's so many holes I need to fill. And now I'm starting to have an idea of where to fill them. So there's a couple of tentative little designs in this batch, but the big ones for Horned Society and Order of the Storm and all the stuff that we know of, the tidbits we know of from Horned Society, that's something I'm going to dig in for next year and stuff. So hopefully I have some designs to show at GaryCon for Horned Society as well.
Fantastic. So I did show this real quick. So here, this is, look at all these channels that are already committed. Blue Box,
that's so cool.
Carlos, Darling, Stronghold, Phoenixy, Wily Hobbit, Troller Games.
We have to extend the image soon and make a second rule.
Prayers Rejects, Phantom Benjay, and then Greyhawk Reborn does the side stuff. So I think I don't know if I'm gonna have any open time slots. So for anyone else to add. So let me start filling these slots, and I'll see what's open after this. We're gonna start Thursday night. I'll start off February 1st, Thursday night, and then we'll raid into someone from Thursday and try and run through to Friday night, through to Friday morning, all the way. Try and run all the way through to Sunday. Save your pennies now, please, because we got to beat $25,400. I'm not sure how we're going to do that this year, so it's going to be challenging, but we're gonna shoot for the stars here. February 1st through the 4th. So okay.
Yeah, that's way more than 24 hours. Yep.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Feast of Fiends.
Yep.
So, all right. Let's do the giveaways here, and then we'll get out of here. I'm going to do 2. You get your choice. We'll do 1 compilation of 2 adventures, because Patrick has kindly, oh my gosh, where'd they go? Has kindly gotten me the D1, the D1, 2, and the D3s together. So nice. Yeah, we got those, and we got G1, 2, 3s here. Yeah, so I got a real nice pile. Thanks, Curtis. Thank you so very much. We're gonna close this out. Here we go. First winner, M5 tie-in. Second winner, Lando. You guys tell me. Like compilation book would be. What do I got here? I have a Scarlet Brotherhood here still. Also, I have a Vecna Lives. That would count as a compilation book too. So, yep. Or but we do have Q1 here as well. S4, Border Watch, a Fiend Folio. That's a compilation book. You guys tell me. You two, whisper to me. You want Scarlet Brotherhood? You got it. Lando, you got it. So I will get that out to you. I got your address. So, and then M5 tie-in treasures. Yeah, I got treasures for you. I'm gonna. Yeah, I got them. Awesome. You're good. You are good. Stronghold. We had a great show tonight. It was awesome. Anna and Les, thank you so very much.
Oh, thank you.
Hey,
And
thank you.
thank you
This
again,
was
Les,
fun.
for coming on. That's
Fun.
awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. And I will say thank you to Little Bird and Coco Bunny 94 because I sprung on them that session 0 that I was live streaming it right to the game. I was like, ah. So yeah, and I'm so glad we did though. That was really a fun discussion. Thank you all, everyone who participated. Thank you everyone who made us in the morning the top stream all day for D&D, and then when we went and we did the game, the session 0. Legends of Adventures was on with 250 viewers, but we were number 2 the whole time. So I want to say thank you. That was really heartwarming that you guys all hung in there, guys and gals, and participated. So we're gonna rate Darling. Yeah, absolutely. We got to rate the Darling is filling a hole and is playing in the Ed Greenwood game. Tony can't be there, so Darling's going to be jumping in to take her place with I think Phil Mafani is going to be playing the group. It should be funny. So yeah. So we always rate into our partners here. So, yep. Awesome. That's good to hear. See you all soon. See you all Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, last stream before Thanksgiving. Les, thank you. Anna, thank you. We'll see you all a couple nights.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Wrong
Later,
button time
guys.
coming.
Yay. Yeah.
Be safe and have fun.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely. And I am feeling it now from last night's pickle and all the other stuff yeah, so yeah. Awesome. So we can get over 75, that would be awesome. We'll take 75. 4, 3, 2, 1. See you Wednesday. Yep. Just make sure this.
Yep. We lost